Apologize for the delay. Had some technical errors or issues on my end that thankfully we were able to find a workaround for. But just want to introduce you guys to Jim, and I'm going to let Jim introduce himself and give a little bit about his background, and then we'll get into the first topic.
Oh, yeah, Jim. I run a dog business, I guess, in Austell, Georgia, called Triple Creek Kennels. We work a lot with dogs that have run into some issues, some troubles, and we also do quite a bit of just normal, flat out dog training. We work with some agility dogs. Occasionally, I work with some hunting dogs, and we do a kennel as well, where we've had people come in and uh, currently, I have one long-term board and train in-house, and but typically see 12 to 14 dogs a week, just depending on what's going on. And I pretty much prefer to do all of my training and work outside. I do it inside when it's required, if it's raining or it's bad weather, but I almost do everything else outside.
Okay,
Um, so that's me. Mhm.
excellent. All right, Jim. Thank you so much. So, first thing, I guess our first disagreement. Now, the first thing you had said in your email was aggression and dominance are generic statements and they apply only to group sets that can be defined by the group. So, can you just give me just a little bit more clarification what you mean by their generic statements that only apply to a group set?
Okay, so pick a group of anything, say a group of phones. Okay, for those to be a group that can be defined, you have to have a transform that transforms um, items in that group into something else. Uh, Kant and some other folks have a long time ago uh, started pulling in some of those math ideas and sort of applying it to that. And to, I'm starting to sound like a word salad dude. Simply
No, you're
is
good. You're good. It's all good,
if
Jim.
um, if you take, let's say, aggression, and you want to deal with that uh, by, hey, a little closer walk with the dog, a little closer to them, try to keep them, close to you and moving, and slightly restraining them, getting them to settle down or what have you. Um, then, okay, you can say that that works with what that dog is doing. But aggression is the problem. It has to be specifically about what the dog did. And so, because if one of those issues that you've defined as aggression because of violence against others, um, sometimes that can be caused by other things. So if you start restraining and messing with a dog or trying to keep it from run away, and the dog is in pain, you're going to make it worse,
Mhm.
and that destroys the group because it's a different result for things that have been grouped together.
Okay,
So
sure. Now, I guess this is why I like to be specific about definitions and how they apply. And I don't know if you've seen in my recent videos where I go into definitions of words, but um, I do agree that, especially in the dog community, these words get thrown around a lot, but nobody really takes the time to define them or explain what they mean. Dominance, in particular, I think, has taken on, I call it like the dirty word of the dog world because people have attributed it to be one thing, and I think they utilize that word to say be too heavy-handed with a dog or too. It even borderlines into say like abuse, where you may get a little bit violent with the dog almost, where you get angry with the dog, maybe you hit the dog, maybe and this is what people think dominance is, but that's not really what it is at all. So, and if we study groups of dogs, you can see the different social dynamics in real time and how dominance would apply to say a group of dogs or even aggression. Like I don't see aggression as violence necessarily. Like aggression, if you look at the definition of that word, would be the intent or the intent to do harm, or say a threat, right? The threat which would lead to possible harm if the individual in question were to carry out that threat.
Mhm.
So when I look at how dogs interact with each other, like Grey Goose, for instance, when a dog gets too close to her and she's eating and she asserts herself towards that dog, that is a form of aggression where she is asserting herself, letting that dog know, back off my food. And that is also a dominant tendency in her where she is because if you look at the definition of that word, exerting power and influence over, she is exerting her will over the other dog to claim her food, right? So you can see these things play out. And but I do agree that aggression, there are many different types of aggression, and in the case of, say, pain, that would be one instance where yeah, the pain can absolutely cause the dog to become aggressive, and that would be one thing where you'd have to kind of rule that out if you suspected the dog was in any kind of pain before you would take into account other factors that may be causing the aggression.
In response to the um, to a dog growling when another dog approaches them, uh, I don't term that as aggression. It is or in the way that you were talking about that, that is the dog simply communicating to the other dog, I don't want you there. And
Sure,
that's all it is. It can
but it's
sound weird to us because it's a growl or whatever, but that
yeah,
is kind of their base um, communications and let go. There's a big difference between um, warning sounds and false charges where they kind of bluff and all that,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that true aggressive, violent behavior. There are very few dogs that actually exhibit the aggressive, violent behavior. Um, they, if you keep pushing one that's warns you, then yeah, a lot will. But for the most part, almost all of those mannerisms, behaviors, sounds, noises, stances, they're all basically, hey, look, I'm not comfortable with you. They're not close. I don't want you over here. Um, you need to back up. And it's a warning. It's a warning so that they don't have to fight the same way we do. Hey, don't do that. Please don't do that. Don't do that. And then
sure,
eventually
sure.
thing escalates. And so that's it's a different thing. And dogs, uh, although their survival instinct and drive is very, very high, um, I don't think most people consider that humans actually are a little higher with the survival drive. But almost everything they do is based upon that. It's just straight up. Um, hey, this dog, like you were saying, or my dog, I have dogs that do that occasionally too. My Lexi, sometimes she's super neutral dog, and occasionally she just doesn't like a dog being right next to her when she's eating, and she'll growl. But that is just a basic form of survival. Hey, I want to eat this food and I want this because I'm hungry and you're messing with it. Back off. It's not, I'm going to kill the little white fluffy puppy. That's
Well,
all it is.
but you would agree that that warning is a threat, right? It
Um,
is a form of communication that says if you get too close or attempt to take this, I will assert myself towards you.
yeah, in some cases it is. But from what I see with animals, it really is not that hard of a threat. It doesn't come across as an ultimatum. It a lot of times it signals to the other dog, "Hey, I'm doing something wrong," and they could just sort of change their body stance. You'll see them kind of maneuver around when a dog growls at them, and it'll take the tension out of the system. It's not the same aggression as if a human pulls a gun and points it at you. It's not the same thing. Um,
Sure, there are levels to
they
it.
just yeah, there are levels to it, and so I just when you if you can shift away for me when I talk with clients and a lot of people, it's it's not so much that this is a automatic fight situation. this is a situation. Hey, look what the dog's trying to tell you, and figure it out, um, and go with it. And you don't have to be this whole thing, because when you start looking at that, you get into it leads to where, like when you talk about domination. Um, yes, it's true. When you have a dog on a leash, there's a certain amount of control you have over that dog, or you should have over that dog, and that is controlling the dog, which
Right.
can be considered domination. But the problem is when somebody is working with a dog and they're thinking, okay, I've got this dog in control. He thinks I'm the alpha. He thinks I'm dominating. He understands my authority. Well, when that dog doesn't do what you want it to, oftentimes that will lead to the owner escalating the dominance and escalating the control. Um, and that's where you run into some of the problems. It's not
But
necessarily when
yeah.
somebody, you know, you know, pops the collar a little bit, or makes a little thing, and the dog does that. It's when the dog doesn't respond to that, and they think, "Oh, this dog's not respecting me. This dog's not taking my authority," and so they pop it harder, and they just keep popping it harder, and it just, sometimes that works, but it's not the best way to go about it, because eventually you're going to run across a dog that's just not going to do what you say, and where do you stop if you just
Right.
keep thinking you have to ratchet up that dominance?
Well,
Um,
this is why a core theme or a core message in my channel is to educate people on what dominance is, because that's not dominance. Now you are attempting to exert dominance over that dog in a physical manner, but real dominance is it's a mental and a hormonal thing where you can have a dog on a leash, right? And yeah, you have control over that dog in terms of restraining it. But that doesn't mean you actually have authority over the dog, because the dog may be doing whatever it wants on that leash and totally dismissing whatever it is you're trying to tell it to do. Real authority comes from, if I dominate my dog in the correct way, I should be able to take every tool off that dog and that dog willingly follow me and respect what it is I tell it to do and not to do, because I've dominated it in the right way. I have complete influence, control, and authority over that dog. And out of respect, it listens to what I tell it to do without any tools on. That's why, my dogs, once they reach a certain level, I take the collars off. I don't need a collar, a leash, anything like that, because I don't have to resort to. I always say, if the higher level of force you have to resort to, that shows you that the your attempts to influence are not very effective. So if I have to use tools to get my point across and elevate the level of force using those tools, then my ability to influence is poor, right? So this is why I'm saying, like Grey Goose, for instance, to dominate another dog, she can do it in a matter of seconds. Whereas as a human, I have to maybe incorporate tools at first as a compensation. Like Goose can communicate with a dog, exert her dominance over that dog, establish that she's the number one dog in that equation without any tools whatsoever except herself. But I can do that with some dogs just by communicating the right way. But there are other dogs where in certain situations, maybe I got to put a gentle leader on them. Maybe I have to use the leash in a certain way. But it's a way to, like I said, I'm compensating for my lack of ability to communicate the way she can.
oh, so what happens when she gets met with opposition when she does that?
Well, two things can happen. Either the other dog, well, typically what happens, the other dog submits because she's a very effective communicator and she has a very strong personality. Now, in other cases, yeah, you may have two dominant minded dogs where that can escalate to a fight. But you have to understand, like, I only allow certain things play out because I trust Goose and her communication, or her ability to communicate fairly and in a balanced way where she never takes it too far. But if I said had a dog in my presence where that dog may be a little bit more dangerous and there's a chance of it escalating to something more serious, then I have to understand that, and I got to work with that until I can get that other dog to a place where that challenge might not rise to the level of a fight. So far, that hasn't happened yet. But it say with my boy Bruno, when my previous dog, that was the case with him, where things would escalate to a fight if I had another dog that challenged him. So then it becomes a process of I have to set boundaries for both of those dogs because they're going to try to kill each other, right? So, but we do agree that a dog communicating in a way like, see, I see warning growls as an exertion of dominance, because to me it's not always for survival. Dogs will do it over toys, they'll do it over, territory like a couch, they'll do it over, they won't, it's not just for food, and that dog may be well fed, but you go grab its bully stick, like Goose, for instance. When a dog comes in here, anytime another dog tries to get near her stuff, she will exert herself to let the other dog know, like, back off, that's mine. But she's not hungry. It's not for survival. It's simply a matter of saying, that's mine, don't go near it, or there will be a consequence. And the consequence is she asserts herself to that dog in a very strong way, and the other dog just submits to it. So that's how the hierarchy is established, right? Because it could just as easily be that one dog, not all dogs growl when you get near their food bowl. I mean, that's not that you only see that with the stronger minded dogs. Or say if a dog is like, there was a dog on my channel named Mimi. Now Mimi was homeless, and I believe Mimi had to fight for every piece of food she got. So her attempt to control the food bowl, I think, was more out of a survival instinct, because it was more of a learned thing. But she was a very submissive minded dog. So in that context, we have to claim the food from that dog, let her know that there's no need to fight for the food, and then all of that goes away. When you have a more dominant minded dog, yeah, it is a power struggle at that point. It's a battle of wills. I have to exert uh, more dominance over that dog. More, I have to. The strength of my personality needs to come through in a way that says to that dog, "You're not going to challenge me for this bowl. I will. Like, this is mine." And that point, it becomes, like I said, a power struggle, and somebody has to win. So if the human always wins, then the challenge that comes from that dog will no longer be there, which was the case with my boy. He no longer challenged Kaylee for the food bowl because I made it clear to him that wasn't going to happen. But he was a very dominant dog.
So, um, yeah, setting boundaries, especially with food, and taking the time and the stewardship to sit with your dogs and they're eating to make sure they understand the rules.
Yeah,
I think you have talked about that before. I think you've done some videos, and that
definitely,
is
definitely.
exactly how you fix that.
Yeah,
That has always been the way you fix it. There is, um, it, you do really want them to work that out. So that is how you fix it. For me, I don't see it in that way, although the correction, but the the working with and getting through those things is the same. It's simply you stopping them from doing it when they're going to do it. Um, you know, by with food especially, it is best done in a calm way and not with two leashes where you keep pulling them back when they go each other when they're trying to eat. It's best
yeah,
done calmly,
yeah.
sitting with them, laying with them, whatever you do, sitting over the top of them. Um, and you have to do that because it is one of the most dangerous things that happen with pet dogs is that array around food and dogs and bowls. And although you say that's aggressive or dominant dogs, I've seen Chihuahuas that exert that to a degree that's rare. I mean, and I've also seen big dogs that just don't care. Uh,
Right,
and a lot of that I've always found is a sense of survival driving them. So as far as the dog being more dominant over one or protecting one way or the other, it is kind of oddly based upon the old. It's not the size of the dog; it's the fight, the size of the fight in the dog.
right.
Um, and so, and you can greatly eliminate that. Um, and it's done like you said. Other ways you do it are proving to him that, hey, that's not the only food we got, buddy. We got tons of food, and that eliminates that. It
But you would agree,
happens.
you would agree though, that is the dog trying to own the food, is claiming ownership over the food, right?
It in what I've seen and what I've filmed, it is simply the dog wanting it for food. Um, and the reason why it happens with higher treat values, higher valued food, is those foods, the smell trigger their hunger. You know, Pavlov and the watering mouth dog and all that stuff. It's all true, but it's also the fact that, hey, you'll get hungry when you smell cheeseburgers if you love cheeseburgers. Even
Sure.
if you're not hungry, you will kind of get hungry. So the stronger that hunger builds in a dog, the more they are to want that because that's a survival strength in them to satisfy their hunger. That's the thing that tells them what to do. Hey, I need to eat. Um, and so that's why with higher value treats, that becomes more of a problem because it triggers the hunger, which is a survival thing and it doesn't go away. Um, and those are things. And on the other side of that, just as you said, exactly the way you're doing by not allowing it to happen is exactly how you fixed it. It has always worked. Um,
Well,
so it's
I do it a little differently where I claim the food from the dog, right? So see, this is why I don't think it's just survival. I think this is a dominant tendency because if I like I've had videos where I have two dogs, right? And Goose will make it clear to the other dog that that dog's not allowed to get near her while she eats, but I can get near her food bowl all day long. She's not going to growl at me. I own all the food. Goose is the first dog in command, and she makes it clear to the other dog. The other dogs won't even get near her while she eats because she will give warning signals to them very quickly. But that's not the case with me. So, why is it that Goose would not give me those warning signs if it's just survival, but she'll give that to the other dog?
Have you ever eaten the dog's food?
No, what I'm saying is let's say I
No,
have
no,
a
no. What I'm
dog.
saying is that's the difference between you and the other dogs. Have you ever taken food out of his bowl and eaten it in front of him? And I don't
No,
say
but
dog food.
I
I'm not because
I
I know
give
you would
my
eat dog
yeah.
food,
Well,
but
I
no,
mean my
you're not.
dogs eat the same food as me, So
Yeah, but no, what I'm saying, but you've never done it, right?
no, but
Those
my
other
dogs
dogs
eat
have.
my dog the smell would be the same though. My dogs eat the same, like if I cook eggs, I give Goose an egg. If I cook some beef, Goose gets some beef. So
Yeah,
they're
but
eating the same food, right?
yeah. So what I'm saying though is when you talk about the difference between you and your dogs, about your dog not growling at you, that has a lot more to do with the fact that you've worked with him and you guys have a longer relationship and he does respect you. But a big part of that is you have not exhibited the behavior that you're going to eat that food that's in his bowl. Those other dogs have exhibited that behavior and your dog has seen it. And so when
I
he
don't think
sees
that's
them near the bowl,
yeah, I don't think
well, I
that's the
mean, but
issue.
that's exactly what it is though, right? I mean, that's the common denominator between you and those dogs that he has growled
Hmm,
at. You haven't
no.
eaten out of
No.
his bowl. You haven't done that behavior. He has seen those other dogs do it, so he doesn't want them to do it, and so he's warning them.
Well, no, she won't even allow them near the bowl. That's the thing. And because you have owners where they'll have dogs where they can't even get near the food bowl. Well, why is that? Well, but why is it if I have multiple dogs, if I claim a dog, if I claim food from a dog who would previously try to fight me for it, and now that dog knows that I own it, and I can get near that dog's food when it eats now because the power struggle has been worked through, and that dog knows that challenging me is it's not going to win. I've exerted my dominance in a way that says I'm the stronger of the two of us, and that food is mine. That eliminates the challenge right there. So this would be a situation again where it's not a survival mechanism; it's a hierarchical mechanism where the dog, where it previously would challenge me, is no longer doing that because of the strength of my personality and the way that I communicate with the dog, saying that's mine. You won't challenge me for it, right? And that's what Goose is telling the other dog, where she'll let me get near her food all day long, but she will, in a matter of seconds, let another dog know, back off my shit. And it's not just the food, it's with toys, it's with bones, it's with, because if it were just for survival, again, Jim, why would a dog do that? Why would a dog exhibit those same warning signs over, say, being on the couch or a particular space in the room that they consider to be their territory or something that's not food related, has nothing to do with survival whatsoever?
So, like, say like a toy, like
Yeah,
uh,
like a ball, or you know, anything that has nothing to do with the food or surviving or anything entering the stomach.
so um, when survival comes and looks at multiple things, um, sometimes it's just a disruption in their life, a disruption of something. So if they have a possession and it oddly, I think that's one of the best things you can do for a dog is let them have possessions. Let them have stuff that's theirs, a toy or whatever thing. They get used to it and they carry it around. Does a whole bunch of stuff about teaching responsibility and stuff like that, to where they won't leave shit everywhere. Um, but the way that I've always fixed that is um, uh, always have another toy.
Oh, I think you froze, Jim. Oh no, did I lose you? Hey, Greg, can you still see me, Greg? Oh, there we go,
Yeah, I
Jim.
can
I
see you.
thought. Okay, no,
No,
you froze there for a second. So
it's the curse and benefit of the Mac, right? My laptop just grabbed the damn
right,
phone. I mean, it just went. I went, wait a second, that's the laptop webcam, and
right,
so I was like,
right.
well, if I
Thanks,
just
Greg.
hit disconnect, I hope the world doesn't end. So I just hit disconnect. Um,
That's all right,
so
Jim. It's
uh,
all good. It happens.
so what?
Anyway, you okay? You were saying have another toy.
Yeah, and that's it's not a new concept. Easiest way to get a toy out of a dog's mouth when you're trying to teach them to let go or drop is have another toy. Hey, look at this, wiggle it around. They'll drop that one. It's the easiest way to teach drop. Um,
It would be the easiest, but would you say that that's avoiding the problem?
Not at all. You're teaching the dog that what they think is a survival thing is not, and that's the whole deal.
I guess I guess okay, give me an example. Like when I adopted Goose, her foster said she likes to hoard all the toys and she lunges at other dogs' faces over the toys. And she didn't know understand why that was happening. Now I found that very interesting. I'm like, I really need to see this. So because that I hear something different when somebody says something like that to me. But that's what she does when she's here. Like she understands that I own all that stuff. So I
Yeah.
can get near her all day long and take whatever away from her. She's not going to challenge me or give me any warning signs. But another dog does it, and she's going to tell them, "No, that's my shit." Um, and neither one of those dogs. I've had I've had three dogs here at once, and all of those dogs, when they're here, understand I control everything. I don't have to drop another toy to get them to. Because I want to discourage the possessiveness right away, because in order for a dog to not possess something, they need to understand who controls it all. And so to me, dropping another toy when a dog is possessing it's like bribing the dog to let it go, where you're saying, I have something over here that you want, and then you wait for the dog to let go. I would rather teach that dog that no, that's mine. I'm gifting it to you, and I should be able to take it away whenever I need to. So a
But
dog trying to run
that's
away and claim it like a prized possession to me is a problem.
um, I disagree with the bribing of the dog. It is simply not that. It is telling the dog that, hey, this is how we work. This is how we communicate. This is how we live together. Um, when I want something from you, I want it, and it's not the end of the world when I get it. I'm going to give it back to you if it's whatever, or I'm not going to give it back to you. But this thing that if a dog feels the need to escalate it, that's an irrational thing. The dog is doing that based upon, for whatever reason, that toy has become very, very important to them.
It's possessed it. Yeah. It believes
Uh,
it owns it.
Um, and so when it's not that important, the ball is not important. The stuffed animal is not important. Um, and it's definitely not something to risk your life over. Because when a dog fights, it doesn't matter. Well, of course, the Chihuahua against the Doberman, yeah, the Chihuahua's going to lose. But in a dog fight, even the winners get maimed. All right, it's not worth it. There's no scenario for most people's lives. I mean, we're just having fun, commuting, going to work, and doing all this stuff. There's no scenario in which that dog should fight over a ball. And the way you teach that is to let them know that that ball is not important. That ball has nothing to do with this. And
How do you
that's
do that though, Greg or Jim? How do you teach them it's not important?
because you have another one.
But wouldn't
Um,
they think that other ball is just as important as the first one?
no, because that's not the important thing. And that's not the important thing for dogs either, or for anybody. The important thing is having some other creature, animal, human in your life that you can communicate with, that you have a trust in. That is the most important part of survival for all non apex predators because we depend on others to work through the world. And I don't mean that you're not a strong person or a lone wolf or whatever, those things. I mean, as a group, that is our ability. And dogs fit in the same way. That's why they have packs. Um, Having somebody that you can understand, that can understand you, is the greatest thing in the world, right? Because no
But
longer are
to
you. Hmm?
no, oh, go ahead and
Well,
finish what you're saying.
um, and that's why hunting with dogs and that relationship between animals and humans, service dogs and that relationship between animals and humans. That is a much higher level of survivability to have a team and a pack than it is to eat that one thing or than it is to have that one possession. And when you can give that to a dog, when you can give that to a dog where you guys have learned how to understand each other, you can see what they're doing and they can see what you're doing. That is a very, very much more enabled dog because
Sure,
they can tell you what they want, you can tell them what you want, and you can understand each other. Um, that is much more valuable than a ball is. That is much more valuable than food once you get to a point. And because it's how you get food later. And so when you convince those things like, of what is important in the world and what is, worth the dog to fight over, what it's not, you have to teach them that because a mother dog will do the same thing. A mother wolf,
sure,
a wolf
definitely.
pack, or wolf couple, they will do the same thing. Hey, no, don't mess with that. It's going to get you or whatever. And we have to do that same thing because, truthfully, that's not also hardwired um, and brought upon. It's not like we're born with a Wikipedia page in our head that says, "Oh, I know that porcupine is going to hurt me if I go get it." Um, they have to be taught that. Sometimes they learn
Right.
those things on their own. Sometimes they learn those things from others. Sometimes from other dogs, other people. We do the same thing. We were not born with the ability to just read. Somebody had to teach us that. And
Sure.
that's what we do with dogs: is teach them what's important in our world and what's not. And the way that becomes even effective, I know we talked about, it was something else that we had disagreed on, was that animals communicate better with our dogs communicate better with other dogs than we communicate with dogs.
Yes.
The reason why I didn't feel that that was quite true is that a couple of stats. The red wolf population in this country loses 20% of its population every year to being hit by cars. 20%. Um, a domestic dog is less than 4 per 1,000. And that's a skill that you should teach or should be learned not to get near a car. Dogs don't really have that ability. Um, they just don't. Once a dog can run and play and is no longer, barely hobbling and walking around behind the mom, they're pretty much off on their own. And the dog still guards them and the pack still work together or whatever. But hell of a lot of them get hit by cars. And that is the inability of a dog to be able to express that repeatedly to the animal. They were not able to teach their puppies that. Um, the other part of it is their senses are so much higher than ours that things that we don't think is a big deal is a very big deal, very big drive for them. And it's survival. So when they feel something has changed their environment, so their environment is no longer stable, you will get reactions because they don't like it. Um, and the way you get around that and the protocols we worked up was basically delivering an anti-prisoner environment. So um, at a ballpark, um, throwing a ball for a dog. There's 30 dogs in that dog park, whatever. When you throw the ball, 10 of them go after it, and they kind of scrumble around and do this or whatever. Um, Depending on the dog, some people don't mind that, and some dogs enjoy that little scrum, and it doesn't mean anything. But if you don't want it to happen, if you don't want it to ever happen at all you have to do is pull out another ball. You pull out another ball and say, "Don't worry about that one. We've got this one," and go that way. And that
But
doesn't
but
eliminate.
Jim,
Hmm.
does that really teach the group of dogs though to not fight over the ball?
Well, okay, so these are dogs that I don't own. I don't know those other dogs. I'm not talking about the
Sure.
dogs within my group. I'm talking about my dog playing in a park with 20 other dogs. You throw a ball down there, and 15 of those 20 other dogs go after the ball at the same time, and they start roughhousing with it. Um, why am I going to teach those dogs? Those dogs are not mine to teach.
Well, it's
My
your ball though,
concern,
right? It's your ball though, right?
I buy those freaking balls by the case. What are you talking about? My
I
ball. I literally.
I saw an incident at a dog park one time, Jim. There's people throwing a ball, right? And this
Mhm,
one dog. Now I don't know whose dogs was who and whose balls was who, but what happened was this one dog went around. And they had three balls. This one dog picked up every single. It had three balls in its mouth. It was hoarding the balls,
mhm,
and it threw one. I think it was the second ball they threw. This dog went and attacked one of the other dogs. It didn't bite it, but it was. I mean, it was very aggressive with this dog to let it know back off my ball. And then it went and got that second ball, and then it went told another dog to fuck off, and then it grabbed the third ball. It had three balls in its mouth, but none of the humans standing around watching it did anything to tell that dog that what it was doing was unacceptable. And so the dog was the one, like I said, this is why, this is one reason I believe dogs communicate much better to each other than we do, because we don't have the capacity. I don't have the capacity to use my mouth the way Goose does. I don't have the capacity to exert myself in a certain way that's dog specific like Goose does. But that dog, in a matter of seconds, told two dogs to back off the ball, grab the ball, and then ran away with it. And nobody cared to tell the dog that it shouldn't do that. So if you would pull out another ball, that dog probably would have tried to grab that fourth one. So why would it be okay for that dog to say run around? And I mean, you could pull out another ball, sure, but nobody taught that dog in that moment that hoarding all the balls was unacceptable.
Well, yeah, but I'm not talking about the other dog. I'm talking about my dog. All right. I'm talking about the
Sure.
dog that I'm responsible for, the dog that I
Right.
am responsible for.
Right, but you
Um,
said you would drop another ball for that same for your dog, right?
yeah, and I just recall them back. Hey, I got a ball here. They'll come back. And that's how you treat release. It's the basic fundamental, you know, no remote collar shit to teach release is it's just basically, hey, send them out to search for one, uh get their attention, recall them, and say you've got another one, and they come to that. And that's how you teach a dog get
Yeah,
off of a scent. It's how you
I
get off
wouldn't
trouble.
I wouldn't do it that way. That's not. See, I don't look at these things as teaching. I look at it as, again, this is from a hierarchical perspective. I just had a dog on my channel as a German Shepherd, and this dog did not want to give up the ball, and the owner couldn't believe it. This dog didn't want to give up the ball when it had it, right? Well, I had already done certain things with this dog, and when I went to play fetch with that dog, he gave it up right away to me. I didn't have to teach that. It was out of respect that dog gave me the ball. But I didn't have to drop another one to get it to release the ball. What I do before the dog even gets the ball is establish that this is mine and I own this, right? So This is me exerting dominance over the dog, me claiming ownership before the dog ever thinks to claim ownership. So I'm holding all the power in that situation. And if the dog wants the ball, there's a certain way they need to behave to get it. It's not just I don't just throw it just because same with food. Like there's a certain way the dog goes about earning the food. I
But
can't
we're
just give the dog the
yeah,
food,
but
right?
we're talking about different situations here. Okay, so back to the original one. If you have a dog that you've playing fetch with at the park, okay, and those other dogs want that ball and they get it. So I don't want my dog to contest that. I don't care. I don't want them to contest that. I don't want any of my animals to contest that. I want them to know immediately when I said, hey, pull up, chalk it up, check up, that let it go. I don't give a shit. That's a situation I don't want that dog in. And the way I do it, I can exert that from a long distance away. I mean, this works over as far as they can hear me, which half a mile for a dog. So when that dog goes out, I can immediately tell them, check it up, leave it, because they know that it's no longer important because I've told them it's no longer important. Because it's not important enough for me for my dog to get in the middle of those dogs. Because in that particular scenario, I don't care about the other dogs. My dog is the one that I'm caring for. The client's dog is the one I'm caring for. They're the ones that are my responsibility. So what they're doing, they're doing. And there's nothing that I'm going to do in that park that's going to change those dogs right then, because I
Sure.
have other dogs to do. So just you completely avoid all that when you see that happening and pull your dog out. And if your dog is on a prey drive, you have to overcome that. And the way you overcome that is simply the way that dogs hunt. Okay, no, that's not the right way to go. We got to go this way. That's all it is when you redirect a dog. We call it different things. We call it to hear, area, zone, to me, check up. Those are all different things that we teach dogs to do, but it's based upon showing them when something is important and when it's not important. And when you're saying, to yourself and to your look at it, it's not that much difference, because what you end up doing, what you're doing, and it works like that anyway, is that what's important to you then becomes important to the dog. So over time, like I said, you want this dog to sit. Say you just want him to sit when you pull the ball out and not jump up and down on you, jump up and down on you. Exactly what you're doing. You don't give it to them until they do what you want them to do. Hey, if you want to do this, then you've got to respect this because this is how I do it. Um, and when you start approaching it from the point of this dog is not respecting me, and that's why it's doing this, you can run into other areas that fall into that line of respect. And that is that, well, how do I make this dog respect me? Okay, this dog doesn't
Sure.
respect me. How do I make them respect me? Um, and when you start using aggression and dominance, um, what you run into, as I said before, and it's the same trap, when it doesn't happen and you escalate it because that's what you think you should do.
I
Hey, that
I
dog,
don't
and
promote
that's
that though,
how it,
Jim.
huh?
I don't promote that though. That's
I
not
don't
what
think you
I
do.
that's
But see,
why
that's
yeah.
not it. It's not just what you do, right? Just as it's in that dog park, your life isn't centered on just what you do. There are other things that are always there. So, um, you know, it's in this world. It's not just what you do that affects your life. It's what others do as well.
Sure.
So, if you're at a park and somebody else has, whatever reason, you don't do this, but had, hey, a dog didn't give them ball back, and they if the collar thing had a collar on it, they popped the leash. If they didn't do this, they reached in there and pulled the dog's teeth apart or whatever, or tried to do that. And
Yeah.
most dogs,
Yeah.
that shit don't work. I
No,
don't know many
no, it
people that
don't.
can open the jowls of any decent, healthy
Yeah.
dog, but
Yeah.
and the ones that you can, I mean, damn, you're going to break their jaw. So, um, and so they've done it in that way that's different. Well, I can't control that. I can't control how other people have raised their dogs. So I don't
Right.
know if that dog has been taught that when something comes up to it, and they have a ball in their mouth, they're gonna fight for that ball. Like, and so if you go up and if you do this, I don't know what they've done. So I immediately just, for my dog's protection and any other dog, tell them immediately, no, that's not a situation you're going to be involved in. Come on,
Sure.
come
Yeah, and
back.
I don't
Okay.
disagree with that. I don't
Yeah.
disagree with that. Yeah.
Um, and so, and then the way that rolls back to is, ah, you know, you got an owner. I have some friends that have pit bulls and stuff like that, and I play with them. A lot of times, I use them to test new products and stuff. I mean, I really like to watch a pit bull just destroy something because it's funny to me.
Oh yeah, it's
Um,
fun. It's fun,
but
and they
so
do it. They do it real quick, don't they?
dude, I mean, all dogs have a lot of strength in their mouth or whatever. But
Oh
yeah, those
yeah.
guys
Oh
are a
yeah.
different thing. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it's let's do it a review on a glow in the dark ball. And it had batteries in there, and it was pretty damn near indestructible. I had my dog had played with it, a couple other dogs had played with it or whatever, and I was curious, just whatever, because the thing seemed indestructible. That dog just popped that thing in half. I mean, and
Oh
a little
man.
part popped off of it there, and I was like, "Yeah, this is not
Yeah.
a good idea." And but when we were there, the guy couldn't get the thing out of the dog's mouth, and um, I don't have to assert authority over the dog. I don't have to do any of that. I just show, hey, I got this other ball. Now they want that ball. Okay, there you go. Boom, problem solved. I don't really care.
Actually, so
Well,
so to that point though, Jim, Greg's asking some questions here. Greg says, Jim, is it not important because you have plenty of balls? And then Greg asks Jim, how do you enforce no? So I guess if you want
oh,
to speak to that.
it's taught. I guess no is something that just sort of happens. It's not typically taught. It just sort of happens as our natural communication with a dog. They're going, hey, no, no, no. That just sort of comes out because that's what we do with everything else, right? Somebody's walking towards the end of the club. No, no, no. Um, you know, you should best work with leave it. Um, leave it covers so many different avenues. Um, if you've got a dog that's on leash or whatever, and it sees another dog across the street, and you can feel them tensing up, you can feel them getting tensing up, coming to attention. Those things aren't always necessary sign of aggression. A lot of times, a dog, when it sees something that's interested to them, they will kind of firm up. Pointers point, other dogs do
Yeah,
say
it
it's
gets
all
tense.
kind of
Yeah.
this. My entire attention's on that thing right there, and if you just simply say leave it, and you've taught them what leave it means, it goes away. And if you've done it right, it goes away for them for an extended amount of time. They don't just take 2 steps and return back to it. And so what most people consider no, and I do the same thing. It's just life. I mean, when I'm working with dogs, hey, no, 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 no. But you have to get into the habit of you ingrain leave it at a puppy's age, if possible, as soon. It's probably one of the most important issues about training a dog is leave it. It works extremely well with food aggression. It works extremely well with bowls. If you've taught a dog leave it, then when they start sniffing another dog's bowl, you just simply say leave it. When they go after a prey animal, leave it. And that tells them
So what are
immediately that
what
that
are
is
the
not
steps?
important. Huh?
What are the steps you do that, Jim? Because I personally don't teach leave it. Like I've never taught Goose leave it or my other two dogs. I went about things a little differently, but I guess because Greg's asking too, what are like what's the sequence that you would go through to establish to the dog that it needs to either let go of something or just ignore something altogether that say it's moving towards once you say that.
Well, there, as with everything, and I know people always get caught up in, this method always works, this method always works, this method always works. Um, if you want to teach leave it with solely treats, just food, uh, the basic and simple thing is you put something on the ground that they like, or you put it on your knee or whatever. It's usually best where you're close to the dog. And when they start sniffing it, you literally just say, "Leave it," and you just drag that and you lure them. You lure their head to the side. You don't touch them. You just take another treat and you lure it over there, and then you let them get that one. And you can do that over and over again, and that's one way to teach it, and it works. It works for a lot of dogs. Um, there's two things you remember in that: you can never let them get that food item or whatever that you told them to leave it. If it's sitting there on the ground, you can't ignore it and leave it there, because if they get it, then they're just going to always go, "Hey, I'm going to go this way," and then I'm going to come back and get it. So you have to do that, and that's how you move down that line. If you don't want to do it with treats, if you want to do it other ways, um, it's simply, um, when you walk up to something and you see it, you just say leave it, and you give a gentle nudge, a tug on the leash. If you're using a collar, you can sort of do that if you want to. It's a weird thing to do with a collar, though, with an e-collar. But the idea is you get them used to, when you say leave it, it breaks their attention to something else. And that's all you do, is you just put that in there. And over time, over life, that will become ingrained. And it doesn't take long. Leave it can be taught in an hour for the simplest things. Um, leave it on prey requires a little bit more, because that's a much stronger drive for most dogs. And so it does require usually some leash time and some working on it, but it is very valuable. That is one
Yeah,
of the things you have to teach your dog for it to survive, because you're going to have
I
to
would
tell it at
go,
some point that what it
yeah,
wants to do is going to get it killed. So you have to tell them leave it, and that
I
works in
go
the
back. I go about that a totally different way, Jim. But well, to your point with the leash, though, I do agree in a little bit, or I should say, I agree maybe with nudging the dog or gently pulling it away. But usually, what I'll do, because I teach that true obedience just comes from how high the level of respect that dog has for you. So, like, and it was uh, demonstrated in the series with the German Shepherd I just posted recently, where I won't necessarily say the words "leave it." I just exert myself the way I communicate in a way that tells that dog back off that thing. So, and I've done the same with Goose. Like I've never trained Goose to sit, stay, leave it, nothing. But she doesn't, when we're outside, she follows me. She listens to if I tell her not to do something. We're not having those issues. But it's because, to me, if the communication is effective enough with the dog, you can get things done very, very quickly.
yeah,
So I get in front of and block, and then I'll send the dog away.
yeah,
And then, but see, typically to me, it's not the words you use, it's the energy you put behind it. So it's not, if say Goose was heading towards something, and I just said, hey, let her know she needs to stop. She'll stop in her tracks and look at me, and I'll say, get over here, or I'll start moving the other direction. Just something to let her know that, hey, I don't approve of this. And so communicating like that, I mean, you get the point across very, very effectively, very quickly. And it's like, to me, you don't have to spend all the time trying to teach commands or words or anything like that. It's just the the dog has a higher level of respect for you, so it just wants to do what you tell it to do, or it wants to do what you don't tell it to do. It wants to respect the rules.
a lot. Here is we're not disagreeing here, um, because a lot of those words are simply for us. They're simply
Yeah,
for us. That
yeah,
triggers emotion or something that we do. Like when I said, "Hey, with the treats, it's leave it," and you do your hand like that around their nose, and their nose follows it, and it breaks them off there. Okay, so that's it. And so when you use leave it, um, you'll find that you're doing that hand too. Not real sure exactly how much words like mean to a dog, um, and their ability to sense, smell, hear so many, a much larger thing, and their ability of how much they take in and notice about their environment, never really clear as to how much that word means to them as opposed to the signals you're giving them, because
definitely.
it's the exact same thing. So
Yeah,
you've
definitely.
what you've done is, in that the words in the instructions or stuff like that, a lot of that is for us to hit back to the same thing. Hey, so now I'm
Yeah,
going to show the same thing again, the same thing that I showed the dog before. So when I did this way, and then so now when I do it this way, it understands. you're not real quite sure if it's the word, if it's the sound of the word, the phonics of the word, or if it's the body language, or if it's the hearing or the sensing. Um, how much of each one of those plays a part into what the dog communicates with you. And as you say, over time and very quickly, Tom, the dog will watch you and know your actions. And that's how they communicate. That's how they live in your world. They know that, hey, he's what? Something's going on. What's over here? Oh, I'm not supposed to do this. Oh, he wants me back over there, or we're gathering back up. And they pick that up on a level that is sometimes it's hard for me to even fathom when I see a dog do
Yeah.
it.
I think
Yeah.
you would probably agree with this, Jim. Because one thing I tell my clients is like if you want to build, say, an association with a word, make sure you because people have a tendency to over communicate. They'll just spew a bunch of words at the dog. I'm like, your dog doesn't understand any of this. So I'll say if you want to actually teach a word to the dog, you just use that one word when you do something repeatedly, and the dog will build an association to that sound.
Mhm.
You know,
Yep.
I don't take the time to do that because I just um, like the relationship I have with Goose. I don't need to do it, but if I have a client and they want to go that route, that's usually what I tell them. Don't use so many words. Use the same word over and over again, and then your dog will build an association to that sound. And here, when you make that sound, it'll just know what you mean.
Mhm.
But you have to be consistent about it.
Yeah, it is, a consistent picture, a consistent scenario and environment um, that triggers it. It helps the dog feel like they understand you, and that's a
Yeah,
lot of dogs' insecurities can come in, and it's kind of one of those things that happens in incredible abuse cases or whatever. Is that the dog no longer knows that understands you. It just gets confused. You said do this, and I thought I did that, but you smacked me. And then so when you send those many mixed signals to a dog,
yeah,
you
yeah.
will really fry a dog's brain
Oh yeah,
quickly.
oh yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, just as quickly as they can pick up on stuff that makes sense to them, they can be deranged by stuff that doesn't.
I totally
Um,
agree. I
and
totally agree with that, Jim. I
yeah,
totally agree with that.
if
Yeah, and it's
you ever played a game called we call it nose boop or whatever? Um, it's where if for whatever reason you think a dog needs to relearn its name, you can change its name or you can just really enforce its name. And one of those things you can do, um, actually, I got off there. Reinforce the dog looking at your hands. That's what nose boop is. And so when you can, hey, put your hand out there, your dog touches your hand with its nose, you give them a treat. And that works. It works all the time. It'll keep your dog to kind of looking at you. It'll give your dog an importance of looking at you that's it's pretty easy to set in. And so and it works with every dog. But there's just one thing. Uh, often I will work with multiple dogs, and you can set that in. So you do give them a treat, look, give them a treat, and then you can just hold your hand. They'll touch it. So one time, just goofing around, I had three dogs, and I was doing that with each one of them. But when I would have one do it, I would give the treat to the other one. You know how long that took before things went bad? Twice. 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 Completely. They just completely changed their entire modus operandi. They got pissed. They got
total,
everything.
totally confused them, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't just over time. No, I mean, it was immediate. I mean, the first time the dog looked at me like, what the fuck? And then, yeah, then the second time the dog was mad.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
yeah. Got a
their
little frustrated, huh?
their ability to watch and learn is so
Oh
high.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
that's
They're
why, yeah,
always reading you. They're always
yeah.
reading you. And then I think people it sometimes amazes me when people you know and I've had and God bless them. I've had some older clients that are like this, but they're old fashioned, and so they're used to just like screaming words at the dog, and they don't even give the dog a chance to process. Just give the dog a second to hear what you're saying before you say
Yeah.
something else. Like that can frustrate a dog too, where you're just constantly just throwing stuff at him. It's like slow it down and just give him a chance to understand. Like they have to process the thing you said before they can understand what it is you want from them, and that's a huge part of the communication is you keep it simple and be patient with them.
And that is one of the areas that's odd, like e-collars and tracking collars and GPS collars. I've caught in some flack because I will use those with dogs that have had behavioral problems. Um, but the reason I use them is for this crazy ability they have with a tracking collar on GPS, and you can't see your dog and you recall it. How do you know it's coming? So how do you know
Right.
that the dog is coming to you? Um, you can listen or whatever, but at a certain distance, you can't hear shit. And uh, but with a collar, I can hear that the dog has responded to my command because the collar will give me an indication, dog running. Or I could pop and look at it real quick, and the dog's running towards me. So I'm not just sitting there screaming to me or here, come,
Yeah.
or whatever one. There's like 4 different derivative recall collars. So, but you've given the dog an instruction and it's following it. Well, if you've given a dog an instruction and they're following it, but you keep calling to them, you keep talking to them, you can distract them from their purpose, which leads to higher stress levels in the dog. So you can literally reduce the stress level in a dog with an e-collar. I'm not even talking about using the stimulation or whatever.
Right.
Knowing that your dog is doing what you asked it to, you don't have to constantly correct or issue
Mm.
or instruct or teach
Yeah.
or tell. So it's a calmer state of the mind. The dog's got it and it's moving towards you. Whereas that's the easiest way to blow out a command or an instruction. If your instruction is just your mannerisms or whatever, um, if if a dog is not listening to you and it's completely distracted, and you just keep repeatedly issuing the
Yeah.
instruction or whatever, you will destroy that whatever thin link of understanding that dog had with you, because now you've wiped out what it thought. Because before we did that, I was supposed to come over there, but
Yep.
I
The
didn't
mixed
come over there.
messages, like
Yeah,
you said. Yeah,
yeah,
it's mixed messages, like you said.
yeah,
Now
yeah,
it's
yeah.
because I'm not against e-collars. I don't use them, but I don't. There's people that are automatically have this visceral response to them, like you're abusers. I'm like, no, no, it's like any other tool. If you use it correctly, you know, it can be a great thing. So I'm not against them, but when people come to me with questions about them, I just say, like, listen, I haven't used one in 15 years, so I'm not the guy to ask about it. But
I didn't even know
I'm
they
not against,
existed 15 years ago. Did they exist 15 years ago?
I don't know if they did or not. They might have been in a primitive state. I don't know. But I think maybe they used to be a little bit more harsh, and now that they've kind of got they've like vibrates settings or the sound settings or and I'm sure that's just because of the nature of where the industry's gone. But um, yeah, I don't begrudge anyone. Now, the issue I have with it though is when people become too reliant on them, or they put it on the dog and it stays on the dog for the rest of its life. And I'm thinking, well, that it should be a temporary tool. And then you take it off. That's the same issue I have with like prong collars, where people put a prong collar on a dog and they're like, oh, the dog walks great. And I'm thinking, well, take it off and see if the dog goes right. The dog goes right back to the same
Yeah.
impulsive behavior, then you didn't solve anything by putting the prong collar on it. But now, actually, Greg had another question. He asked, Jim, what is leash time? So I guess he wanted to know. I guess earlier you were teaching, or you were explaining how to teach a dog leave it. Maybe you had said leash time. Maybe I don't know. Did he misunderstand
Oh,
you or?
when you say leave it, you just tug the leash away from the object you want to leash. If you're walking up to actually, I did this the other day. There was a squirrel that got run over on my road, and I don't know, just being who I am, I I took my dogs out there. I had the in-house dog and my dog, and we just walked through just to leave it. Hey, there's a dead animal right there. I came
Right,
back and
right.
cleaned it up, and I didn't kill the
Yeah,
animal. It was it. But
yeah,
it is simply when you're walking up to it. Um, say leave it, just gently tug the leash and make them redirect away from it, and you just keep walking. And that over time, the dog will know, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do. When he says leave it, I need to leave that, turn away from it. And it's just how they learn what that means, or how that learn. I mean, honestly, the leash tug will do it too, and they'll learn. Hey, when you feel just a bare tug on this leash, this is where you want me to go, and they'll go that way. That's how leash training is
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And so it's the exact same thing. Um, the prong collars, as you said, I haven't. I think the last prong collar I used on a dog, it was mine, was probably 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I had a big German Shepherd,
I've never used them.
and so it's just thick fur of German Shepherds, and she was a
Yeah.
just freaking champion, just dog, and she was very hard to contain in the beginning. I don't use those at all, but I do. Uh, I do use slip collars. I do use the chain collars too occasionally. But I'm kind of weird about that. When a dog is pulling a lot, I do not like to use those.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because you run into that same problem where people think they just keep having to grip tighter and tighter and tighter to keep
Right.
a dog from
Right.
doing something,
I agree.
and that is a problem.
Yeah.
Um,
I
there are
agree.
also some more they're more expensive. They're not so easy to find, but there are some slip leads and chain choker collar slip leads that have a limit as to how tight you can make them. They're limited, and so they're limited on
Okay.
their constrictions. Um, and
I think they got
some,
like the slip leads. They have like the stoppers on them, right? Do
yeah,
they?
stopper
Yeah.
knot on
I
there.
like
Yeah,
those. I like those actually. I like those. I've used a
I do
couple of
too.
those.
Especially if you're doing something to where you want that when you're doing something to like people will do in a show ring, where you're trotting with a dog and you want that
Oh
leash straight
yeah.
up and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's easier to work with a dog when the leash is straight up, but um, if you're having to tighten that thing like a vice grip to get it to do that, that's not a
Yeah.
good idea.
I
So
agree. I don't like it. I've never felt good about putting all that pressure around the dogs, and like because some dogs don't care, they'll keep moving forward, and you got that thing as tight as you can, and the dog don't care. But you're also like you're cutting off the oxygen to the dogs. They're like I don't want that. That's why I go to the Gentle Leader, and I
Mhm.
know it's not a perfect tool. It has its downsides, but in terms of pulling. I'd much rather have the dog be uncomfortable that's got something on its muzzle than all that pressure on the neck. I never felt good about that.
Are you
Um,
talking about there are so many different kinds of collars out there, and
yeah,
so everybody's tried to build better mouse traps. When you say general leader, are you talking about the one that goes on the
it's like
nose?
a face harness. Yeah, like the Halties, the face harness.
No.
Yeah.
'Cause I thought a
But
lot of people were talking the general leaders were like the ones that kind of hooked in the front or the side
well,
like that. So
that company does make them. They're like no pull harness, the front clip harnesses. But no, the general leader is the face harness. But my goal when I have to put one of those on a dog to get it good on a leash, my goal is always to be able to take it off. It should be a
yes,
temporary tool.
yes,
We get the good dog good on a leash, and then we remove the tool, and then we go back to leash and collar. You know.
yeah. And
Um,
the thing is, like you're saying, there is nothing free. Like um, it all has a trade off. The general leader on the nose, on the muzzle or whatever. Yes, that is a very good one, especially in a leave it situation where you're doing that. That is very valuable. That's a good tool to do that because you're actually redirecting the dog's
oh
head.
yeah,
You want to
yeah,
get
you
the
can direct.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you damn sure wouldn't put that on a long lead because
No, no,
yeah. See, and that's the thing. Yeah.
no.
It's I don't know if you've ever played football or whatever. You know what it feels like when a coach grabs your face mask and starts talking to you. You don't want that. I mean, you do not want that.
Doesn't feel
Um,
good. No.
uh, so
Uh,
it's collars for different situations.
yeah.
Uh, Loose leash
And
slip
I
leads
guess
are.
maybe I think Greg maybe Googled. They say e-collars have been around since the '60s. E-collars have been around since the
I
'60s.
did not
Holy
know
shit,
that. Yeah,
man.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that was probably back in the day when they were actually shock collars when they actually shocked. That's probably what they did back then, if I had to guess. That's probably where they got their name is shot collar. And people still think they're shot collars. It's like, no, they've come a long way since then where
Well, you
they don't,
turn one up high enough, it will damn sure
oh
shock
yeah,
you. Yeah,
definitely,
so
definitely,
there
definitely.
there's still
Yeah,
that, and that's the
yeah,
other part of this. It is a trade-off. You have to
yeah.
realize what you're doing, and you have to think about, okay, is what I'm doing, does it have enough value? Does it really matter? Is what I'm doing a strong enough value? Because yes, if you turn one up high enough, you will damn sure shock a dog.
Yeah.
Um, and it's you see it all the time when people are too invested about something. They're too suddenly their dog doing what they want is like the most important goal in their life. And that's when you get that whole, well, I'm going to turn the damn thing up to 100. Oh, he didn't do it
Oh
here, didn't
yeah,
do it here,
yeah.
didn't do it here,
When it's
and then you see the dog just and
it's out of frustration. It's out of
yeah,
frustration. You're coming from the wrong place with
yeah,
it.
exactly,
You
yeah.
know, and that's why, like I said, because I don't disagree with you, Jim, when you say that when people think what dominance is, that's how people kind of apply it. I
Mhm.
mean, that is, I agree what people will do, but that's one thing I want to educate people on is that's not the right way to, like, if you have to increase the level of force with your dog, then you're moving in the wrong direction. It's not the direction to go in. To me, that's not real dominance, and that's not like you're losing the battle at that point when you have to resort to that. You're gonna lose respect from your dog. You're not gonna it's not gonna build anything productive in that regard,
No,
you know?
it's at that point you're not um you're breaking down the things that you've already done with a dog. You're
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
damaging.
Yeah, you're gonna hurt the
And
trust.
yeah,
It's
you're gonna
not
hurt the trust. And dogs are said they uh, their their memories and their thought processes. There's no. I don't have any kind of magical thing about that, but a lot of stuff that I see, they are so spatially aware. It is almost a different world for them. Um, and that's one of the things that we work with is to develop that spatial awareness, that built-in ability they have, and to make it better. And it makes one of their strong points. But it also means that we don't always associate what we think they're doing with what they're doing because of their attuneness to spatial awareness. Um, like you know, we've had I came home one day and at that time I had four dogs that were mine. They were all outside, and my yard's fenced in, and I have a doggy door. They go whenever they want to. But they were all outside, and they wouldn't come in when I came in. And they were out there for a while, and so I finally got up and I was going out there. So what's going on? Let's go back inside. And they wouldn't come out. They wouldn't move. They were all kind of, I don't say cowering, but they were keeping their distance from the house. And it took a minute. We didn't quite figure it out. And this, there used to be these things called, and they still make them. It's an ultrasonic noise or whatever. A noise only a dog can hear. That you're supposed to control barking with. And yeah, I don't know exactly what the hell. But uh, a person had been sitting in a chair in the living room and squished the device such that it was kind of broken and
So it was just on. It was just on.
on.
It was
That's
probably
right.
saying, "Oh wow,
So the dogs
wow,
are out there in the back. They don't even come in the house. And how do you know that? I mean, I can't hear this. How do you
yeah,
know what's going on? Um, so and sitting there, yeah, you can kind of get it just like you do. Hey, well, okay, well, let's go on. Now, come on, let's lead them back in the house. This is irrational. But in about two or three steps, when the dog is not moving and you're kind of tugging on it, you're like, okay, there's something else going on. And that's the thing that people often I find out that often I see is that, hey, there's something else going on. If you get caught in a one track mind and you miss that subtlety of something else, you will fry your dog.
yeah,
Yeah. And so that always has to be kept in the mind that there might be something you're not seeing. There might be something you can't hear. There might be something else. Now that was a rare case, but to that event, I I spent a little while, and I finally got one to work, a device that I can hear in their range, um, to check and see. And I did that for a while, and then it just was a lot of work for no good reason. Yeah, whatever. You just watch what the dog's doing. If something's bothering it, figure it out. You don't have
Yeah,
to.
and I always say too, like if you have a, if you know your dog pretty well and you already have, their patterns down, and you have something just out of the blue like that that's unusual, then yeah, there's something going on that I'll even give you a good story. I remember when I had my previous two dogs, Bruno, he loved going for walks. Favorite part of his day was getting out there and just exploring the world. Well, I took him out on a walk one morning and we got across the street and he just laid down, shut down, lay down in the grass. And I thought maybe he was just being a little bit stubborn, so I picked him up. We kept going. He did it again. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So I picked him up. We kept going, did it again. Well, he did this the next day, and I'm like, okay, this he doesn't usually do this. What the? And so I had discovered that he had actually broken one of his teeth, and there was an infection creeping up into his head. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. He doesn't feel good. So got him to the vet right away. They did a little surgery on him, and then he was fine after that. But it just goes to show, like, when you have something like that that's just out of the blue, out of the ordinary, that's not normal, it's a good sign that there's something going on that you got to investigate a little bit.
The
Um,
one of the weird things that we implemented probably about a year and a half ago, um, is grooming and inspections. So I'm not talking about like a little walk around the neighborhood or something like that, but when we're going out for extended hikes and extended walks or whatever, um, I always rub the dog down, find out, make sure there's no kind of issues. They don't have anything. Make sure everything's fine. Check everything out. I mean, they could have something as simple as like something trapped in the fur between their paw pads. Yeah, after a couple of miles, that shit's
right,
painful.
right.
So,
Hell yeah, it is.
and
Yeah,
so you kind of go through and you completely inspect the dog before you head out, and then when you're coming back, you completely inspect them as well. That way, if something did happen, you immediately notice. Dogs are crazy, just a drive. So they're going to want to do something. They're going to do it no matter what the pain is. And so they
yeah,
can hide things from you that you because hey, their goal is to do this. Yeah, they can do that. And the crazy part about that, before and after, once we started doing that, it it changed how the dogs accepted the behavior. Um, so because there are some instances when you're working with a dog, a field dog or any dog, and you're getting them out in the woods, out into open spaces where they have a lot of freedom and do things. They do that. You can use different collars or harnesses on them to denote, hey, when you're wearing this, it's acceptable to do this. When you're doing that, it's acceptable to do that. And not on like an overall thing, but just to give them a better indication of what's allowable there or what that area is safe for. Um, Grooming them when they come back out, and I'm talking about a brush, taking the dirt out of their fur or whatever, really lets them settle down from being the I'm having fun in the woods, we're exciting or whatever, to coming back into a home environment to where they're settled. And so they come back and they settle down because it gives them more signs and indications of the type of behavior that you think is that you accept and you allow. And it works wonders for dogs so you can allow them to get free out there and have good time and do things. It's not all just fun. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff to it than just play, but um, you don't want them to come back into the house being the same way. So if you put that break in there of, hey, brushing them down, getting them clean, it doesn't take long, and inspecting them, hey, you catch and make sure that they didn't get anything, ticks or whatever, make sure they don't have
yeah.
something embedded in their fur, so they have to live with overnight. Um, and it really increases. that communication between you and the animal. And it's a crazy thing because they do that with horses. They've done that for 1,000 years with horses, and it has the
Yeah.
same effect with dogs. It
It's
really
like
does.
you're like decompressing them almost from
Yeah, yeah. I don't. Um, Physical exertion and stuff does decompress them too, to a degree. Uh, I don't know if it's more of along the lines of just closer working together that does that, and so and it gives them a break between this and that. And it's just as we had said earlier and multiple times in this, all of those interactions, all those things, it's not always real clear as to what actually causes it and doesn't cause it. So when something works, stay with it. I mean, there's no reason to change. Um, and because we don't really, I don't think we'll ever comprehend just how they look at the world. I don't think that's possible, and I don't think they can comprehend how we look at the world either.
oh,
Um,
definitely, definitely.
no.
And that's why just getting back on the dogs and human communication. That's one reason why I think dogs, like I said, we have to use tools to compensate because dogs can tell each other things. They communicate in very subtle ways, and in a way, like I'll give you an example. A couple of my puppy clients. When Goose disciplines them, the message gets sent very, very quickly, and that dog responds in seconds. But if I try to do the same thing, that puppy's not as receptive to it. So I have to rely on her to help me discipline this puppy because I can't do it in the same way that she can. My best course of action is to apply a consequence where I just put the dog in its crate and it loses its freedom for a period of time. But she can exert herself and that dog will get the message and say, "All right, I get, all right, I'll stop. I get it."
Mhm.
And it's like the example of the mother dog. It's when one of its pups will challenge the mother for food. That mother will discipline that dog in a way that lets it know you cannot challenge me like this. Um, but it goes back to how they use their teeth, how they exert that force with say even their body. Like I've seen Goose get on top of dogs and sort of dominate them that way, and it's like, well, I can't do that the same way she can. Yeah, I can stand over a dog, but I can't do it. I can't exert myself that same exact way that she can, or put a dog on their side the same way she can. I can't do any of that. And for the dog to actually get some kind of benefit from that, and so that's why having a tool like her is just, to me, it's invaluable. Like I have the best asset in terms of, say, bringing more difficult dogs or even dogs like the border collie that was here yesterday. That dog was insecure, and she's great at just kind of helping the process along, being a calm, stable energy for that dog to be around, and it helps that other dog kind of come out of its shell a little bit. So it goes on both ends. Where if I have a dog who needs some disciplining, she's got it. Or if I have a dog who's a little more secure and needs help kind of getting building some self-esteem, she's got that too. Um, but it would take me a lot longer to get those things done without her, you know.
Um, yeah, and there are a lot of people that do that. You know, there's a guy Beckman, I think.
Yeah, yeah, Joe. I really like Joe
Yeah,
Beck. Yeah,
and um, you can't argue that that's working for him. I mean, you just can't. I mean, what has he
yeah,
done that like
yeah. I love
10,000 times?
Prince.
He's-
He's done a lot. Yeah, he's
yeah,
done a lot of time. Yeah,
yeah.
Prince is experienced
So
dog.
there's nothing you can't go. Well, no, that doesn't work. Yeah, well, it does work.
Right, right, right.
One of the things you run into though is I, funny you mentioned border collies and stuff like that. I have done that a couple of times with border collies. I'll let Lexi, when she runs after something and they try to hurt her, she shuts it down and it goes away. Um,
Hmm.
what I stopped. I don't do that anymore. Um, I don't like. I don't like the other side to that, and that is just as you were doing it and I was doing it. It was in a controlled environment, and you knew what was going to happen and what wasn't going to happen. Um, I have found though that when you do that, that actually only applies to that interaction with that dog. That those brief times now, when I say that, I'm not messing with Beckman or what you're saying, because
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure that after he does that and everybody else does that, there's more work after that. You've just
Sure,
set that one thing, and then you have to
definitely.
expand it to other distractions.
A-
But
Absolutely.
putting across the message that you just have to do that and it's over is not true.
Oh yeah.
No,
No,
that
I agree.
yeah,
Yeah, you're
it's
right.
not
I
true.
agree. Yeah, that's it's not true. Yeah,
And because it is
definitely.
very much specific to that dog.
Sure.
But it is a first step for a dog, and it is a
Sure.
very effective first step. There's no doubt about
I
that.
agree.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Um, and so that's I kind of moved away from that, but I'm not going to ever say that that doesn't work because it does work. I mean, it does work.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. When it works when it's done right, because it would be irresponsible to tell people like, well, because you need to have the right dog do it. You can't just like if I have a dog that will discipline another dog and take it too far, well now you're doing harm.
yeah.
You're not it's not beneficial. Um you need a dog that's balanced, and like the thing I love about Goose, and I don't know if I've actually met a dog like her, is that she only applies the exact level of discipline that's necessary. I mean, it's the most incredible thing I think I've ever seen, where she only uses the level of force necessary to get her point across, and when the other dog gets it, she's like, "All right, I'm done." And it could be so much as a look, the way she looks at that dog. It could be a growl. It could be her just moving towards that dog in an assertive way. It could be her kind of in a very assertive manner, like snapping at that dog. But as soon as that dog shows submission, she's in her face, she's like, "All right, we're good." Never takes it too far, and I mean it's to a very precise level. It's um something to witness, actually. It's really, and there are moments where I wish, because she's so fast about it, I'm like, I wish I got that on camera, man. That was so cool. But I have some of it. I've been able to catch her in some moments doing that, and it's but you see the way the other dog respects it, and then that dog respects her after that. Um, but this to me also, you have to know what you're doing in these situations. You have to know what you're watching. You have to know those subtle cues. You have to know those subtle what's taking place in this whole social interaction. Um, and then, how does that apply to the greater hierarchy between us and them? Because we always have to make sure we're in control of everything. Like I can't let Goose will never operate on her own, in the sense that, like, if I told her not to do something to a dog, she would listen. She would not take things into her own hands. Um, like if I could see her start to look at that dog in a certain way where I know she's about to discipline that dog, and I don't want her to, or I don't need her to, I'll tell her, just back off. Like, I got this. It's okay. I don't need you right now. And she'll respect that. She won't override my authority in that respect. And so it's you ever heard the saying, it's so simple it's complex? It's kind of like that,
Yeah, and you're right. I would say though that um, the way that works and the way that happens and develops is because you haven't been wrong, right? And that is the other part about the competency and stewardships and the responsibilities of the dog.
Yeah.
If you have given them bad instructions, let's
Mm,
say, like you said, leave it, and then that dog, this doesn't happen in the real world, but just that dog ran and attacked your dog. After you said leave it, that dog ran and attacked your dog. Well, the next time, I mean, you've completely blown that. So the
mm,
responsibility is you have to know what you're talking about.
absolutely.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
where the bond and the trust come, is because you have demonstrated that you know what you're talking about enough times that the dog trusts you and respects you.
Mhm.
It is not simply the physical part. You've told them, "Hey, leave that," and not caused a problem. Whereas if you've
Yes.
done it in the wrong way and that comes back to hurt them, and that dog had told you it was going to hurt you, and you said no,
Mhm.
it's not, you're going to lose a lot right then.
I totally agree with that. And
Yeah,
that, that's actually a really good, that's a great point,
yeah,
actually. And it's something I don't think people talk about enough. And that, yeah, that can do a lot to harm that, because everything comes down to how the dog perceives you.
yeah,
And if I'm supposed to lead this dog, and I'm incorrect in my assertion, or the position I put that dog in, and something bad happens to it, yeah, that dog's not going to see me the same way.
yeah,
Um, so you're right there. It can be a fine line, especially when you're working with a group of dogs, where you really have to know what the hell you're doing, because it could trigger a chain reaction where now you have three, four, dog pile up. They're fighting each other. I mean, and I've been in those situations too, where I had three dogs trying to kill each other, and it's like, and it was just one little subtle thing that made the difference. And so it's like walking a tightrope sometimes, and you really have to know, um, you have to know what you're doing. I totally agree with that, Jim.
yeah. Because but that's how it does seem to be that they're basing that on their assessment of you and whether you make right decisions or not. And that goes very back to the original thing of uh, a type of animal that relies on a group to survive, and having
Mhm.
members of that group be um, trustworthy, smart. Not sounds like the Boy Scout motto. No, the groups, the people, or the animals in that group have proven that they are trustworthy, reliable,
Yeah,
non-violent, non-pain
competent.
causing.
Yeah,
Have
yeah,
proven that they're going to feed them. I mean, that's a big
yeah,
thing. You feed a
yeah.
dog consistently, reliably, a lot of stuff just goes away. I mean, it may take a long time, and you can achieve it better by doing more things together. And so, what you do is it's not going on a walk with a dog. It's not doing this or doing that with a dog. You go on adventures with a dog.
Mhm.
You do this, you do that, and because in your life, in your home or whatever, exactly why would a dog respect you? How does it know you know what you're doing? They don't know that. Like, they don't comprehend that. Hey, this house you live in, it's air conditioned, has food, and you don't get wet or whatever. I built this, or I paid for this, so I am a provider of this house. The dog doesn't know that. Okay, it goes
Nope.
there. Um, so they don't see what you're capable of when they just see you in an environment in your house or whatever. They have no idea that you know what is dangerous and what is not. They have no idea that you are a reliable source of information.
Mhm.
And once you start teaching them that, and you do teach them, and or they learn that, you can't tell somebody, I know what I'm doing, and they just no. Oh, you have to
Right, you're
prove it.
right.
Now
You have
they
to
may follow you.
you have to demonstrate it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to
And
demonstrate it.
so it's hard to demonstrate that in a small home or environment. You have to get into other areas. And the quickest and most effective way, and this is age old, and it starts as a puppy. As many different environments, as many different situations, you want to get
Definitely.
them, and you don't rush through them, you don't hurry it, but the quicker you do it, the quicker you're going to have a well-mannered, a well-developed dog, because you've given them all this information, and if you've done it right, they're going to understand that you do know what you're talking about, um, or communicating about, and that's how you build that. And you're doing that. I mean, the same thing where you brought two dogs in there, and you've proven, hey, if I say it's okay for you to eat here, it's okay for you to eat here because I'm not going to let that other dog do anything to you. When you separate those things, you prove that you've provided a safe environment. A safe environment is very important to an animal with very high survival instincts. A safe
Definitely,
environment
definitely,
is
definitely.
like the basic thing. Um, so one of the things we do, there's videos, um, storms and lightning and thunder or whatever. Um, to counteract that, we there are different ways. I mean, you can use Benadryl if you want to, or you whatever. Some of those thunder shirt things kind of work. The most effective one though is simply getting the dog used to the storms. Um, Now, I'm not talking about firecrackers and PTSD type situations with, retired military dogs and stuff. That's a different thing. That's a whole different thing. Um,
Yeah.
but for just your dog or whatever that starts freaking out, going crazy and panting, um, the best way to fix that is to consistently take them outside in a storm. Um, And what you do, you don't get yourself hurt or whatever. You don't go walk across the field with a golf club in the air. Yeah, you walk around, and you get that. But when they're out there and they feel the intensity, they feel what's going on, the rain and everything like that, and then you bring them inside. What you're doing is you're proving that inside is the safest place for them to be. So that that means that inside is safe from that, and it works very quickly because they still hear it, they still feel it, and they mainly what we found is how dogs seem to know when a storm is coming. They can feel the barometric pressure change. Is
Oh
exactly
yeah.
what it is. They
Oh
can
yeah.
feel the pressure change,
Definitely.
and so you do that. And so if you bring them out there and you go, okay, this is loud or whatever, it's doing this, and you're not torturing the dog. If the dog is freaking out and is batting around, running crazy, foaming at the mouth, no, you go back in. But if
Yeah.
you've gotten him and you have to get them to where they're responding to your communications or whatever, and they're keeping their head level at executive level, then when you bring them back in, they understand, okay, this is the safe place. This is exactly where I need to be when this happens because it's like that out here. And now the fear inside the home is not the same because they've done the thing that they should do that eliminates the problem.
That's actually a really good tip,
Yeah.
Jim. That's actually really good. Because I've never really had dogs that were necessarily afraid of storms. It's always the fireworks and stuff like that. But but that's actually, yeah, that would be, I wouldn't disagree with going about it that way because yeah, you're it's a total, it comes down to the sensory input, right? Where if they're out and the sounds are different and they're feeling everything and the smells are different and then you go back inside and it's not that intense or that intensity level is lowered.
Mhm. Um,
It's almost like you're kind of desensitizing them to that almost, where you're almost putting them in a situation where it's a bit, the intensity level is a little higher, and then you bring them back inside, and it's like there's that lowering
mhm.
of the sensations, if you will.
And there are there are two bases to that. So that is the one thing that changes in that, but they can still feel that pressure in your house. The pressure that's outside is basically in
Yeah,
your house
yeah.
too.
Oh, I meant more so like
Yeah.
the sounds of the thunder
Yeah.
or it's not quite as intense.
And to get them, like if you have thunder lightning that rattles the windows in your house, that's a different level. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that sometimes that spooks me. So, um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but the other side of it is um, when you go out there and then you come back in, you automatically yourself as a person, as I do, as a human or whatever, if I'm outside, it's raining or whatever, and I go in, when I get in that front door, it's a, it's like a, "Oof, all right, I'm out of the rain."
Yeah, yeah.
You physically and everything else, you adjust to it, and you calm that, and the dog will see that as well. So hey, now the dog sees you outside. It's raining, and no matter how calm and cool you're, like they're getting rained on or whatever, it's just a pain in the ass. It's just
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
we don't like
Yeah.
it. I don't like it either. I like the
If,
rain. Yeah, I don't like
yeah,
getting rained
yeah,
on.
if I can, I get out. And so when you come in, you naturally relax, and so your dog sees that, and they take that as a clue. Um, and I noticed too, like I don't know if you've ever done this when you fly a lot. One of the things that you do when you hear a noise or whatever, you kind of look at the stewardess or the flight attendant and go, "Are they concerned?" Are they
Yeah,
concerned? You're like,
yeah,
"Oh, they're all
yeah,
right. It must not be that big of a deal." But if you look over
yeah.
there
If you
and
don't,
they're going, "Yeah,
right?
yeah," it's a different
Yeah,
thing.
yep,
So we do the same
yep.
thing. We're like, "Hey, look, the stewardess." And so that program and that thing came about was um, I had a dog that it wasn't my dog. Worked with a dog that um, was ending the near end parts of its life, and they had it was heart failure, congestive heart failure, and it had hit to them stage 4 6 months prior to me working with a dog. And they had run out at the end of the amount of medication they could give you for the dog, and it's the same medications they give a human for heart failure. You get some liquid out of your drink, diuretics and stuff like that, some stuff to pump up the intensity of the heartbeat to help it. um, but so the dog had reached the end of that. um, so how do you increase that dog's life? Well, this dog happened to be a Chihuahua. Well, Chihuahuas are nervous little things sometimes. So the goal that we did was to get rid of the dog's nervousness and anxiety on irrational things. So there was a whole protocol put together for that. Um, Brought it into a pack. So got it outside into fresh air. Got it outside into fresh air near water. Um, Built a stable pack of dogs around. All these things to reduce the stress and everything to allow that dog's minimized heart capacity to still work. Um, and so they all did that. It worked. The storm thing, um, being in the woods, putting it with another dog that was big and strong, and allowed them to become, you know, reliable on each other. uh, Gave the dog more freedom, allowed the dog to do more things. And I would believe there were other things that I did with the medications that also helped, but those were very big things in that eliminating all those stresses that a dog develops of irrational fears about our world increases their lifespan.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
When the one thing that I say a stable group of dogs won't do with a nervous dog, and that in my experience, usually the Chihuahuas they're so like the little dogs are so nervous and anxious because people they baby them so much and they're always petting and they're always it's okay and then you create this nervous insecure dog. But if you put it in a pack of stable dogs, the one thing those dogs aren't going to do is pet it, coddle it, and tell it it's okay. Those dogs, they're just going to be with the dog, right? They're going to be a stable source of, or they're providing stability and they're providing strength
Yeah.
in a different way. Where because that's one of the quickest changes you could see with those little dogs. Anybody watching, if you have a little dog and it's nervous, the first few things you should do is put it on the floor. Don't let it jump back in your lap. Create some space between you and the dog, and then just ignore it.
Yeah.
And you will see the shaking, whining, nervousness, all that go away because now you're not feeding that side of the dog. You're communicating in a different way. Because if that's the only information you give the dog and it's already nervous and anxious, then all you're going to do is create more nervousness and more anxiety by
Yeah.
petting and coddling and and I've seen I used to do free hour seminars for people. They come into the pet store that I was associated with, and um, I got a lot of those little dogs, and that was the first thing I'd see is they pick up these dogs and they'd be petting it. The dog would be shaking and whining, and then just tell them just put the dog on the ground, and when it tries to jump in your lap, push it away, and then just ignore it. And then the dogs would very quickly stop shaking and whining. And over time, you'd see them just relax.
Mhm.
Um, so, yeah, that's a great thing to any kind of dog,
Yeah.
whether it's a little dog, a big dog, you have a nervous dog, put them with a group of very well balanced dogs, and that will go a long way.
And freedom. So when you're talking
Oh yeah,
about
yeah,
putting a
definitely,
dog down on
definitely,
the ground and you're not controlling it, um,
yeah,
that is another part. Now, in obedience in the things that we do, yes, you kind of have to do those things. And if you have a dog that's nervous, that seems to be a little flighty, the the uh, first thing we always do is we do instill obedience with them, training, sit, stare, whatever. Um, and that allows them to sort of get that. And sometimes that alone will work. Sometimes it will. So you do that first, just first. But if it's still not addressing everything, then you move on to
Yeah,
the other stuff. Um,
sure.
but it is not because obedience or whatever cures everything or does whatever. It's that it is fairly effective for a decent population of dogs, and it's very quick as opposed to other things. And so doing that first doesn't hurt anything. It has no downside at all. And it lets you move forward. And sometimes that's all it is. Hey, a dog gets, hey, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. Then I feel right with the world. Sometimes that just works.
Right,
Um,
right. Because you're giving them direction where
yeah.
there wasn't
And
any.
when they got direction, they're good. And that's what they do.
Yeah,
When it doesn't completely work, you move to the other things, but you do that first. You just do that first. And because it's inefficient to not do that first. Um,
yeah,
then allowing that, and then the other part of it is allowing a dog to work things out on their own. And that's the same thing about picking the dog up. The you pick the dog up and you do this or whatever, you do that. Well, the dog never figures things out on its own. You're always forcing it to do things. So you can
yeah,
accidentally really develop some problems because the dog is only kind of doing this shit because you've made it. They're no longer naturally inquisitive. They're no longer playful. They're no longer uh, they're actually no longer alive. That's just the way to put it. They're not the same curious creatures that they were. They're no longer alive because you've done so much and you've disregarded what they think. And disregarding what they think works in certain circumstances and it works in the beginning, but that has to go away because they have to start thinking on their own because you're not going to be around them as soon as you let them off the leash. If you've done that and that's all you've done, then they're going to get hurt because they've learned it, but they've learned the bad side of it. They haven't learned the entire life, and that's why so many different environments, so many different scenarios that spread this out and increase the number of instances that something's happened. Um, I had 2 dogs at the river well, I had 4 dogs at the river yesterday, um, and, they just 2 of them just jumped right into the deep end, um, and where they had gone in, they were not possible really for them to get out. The rocks were a little higher. They could gone a little further down the river, and they could have just gotten out or whatever, and one of them did do that, but the other one didn't. He was sitting there hanging on the rock ledge, and I just went down there, got him out. And then I called the other one to me and I got her out. And so they're out there. And so immediately after that, um, the big dog, second dog, immediately just jumped the other way upstream into a little shallower part and was able to play and move around or whatever and get back up and get out. The other dog wouldn't do it. He was terrified of water right then because it had gotten to in a part where it thought it was fearing for its life because it literally couldn't get out of the water. The rock face was too high for it to pull itself out of the water. And I pulled him out. But so when the other dog jumped over there into the other section that was thinner or not as deep, um, that one wouldn't go in. Stood on the side and was like, "Oh shit!" Whereas before, 2 minutes before that, that dog had just willingly jumped into that water and it was having a good time. But the other dog didn't. It went straight in. The two other dogs too. They went in on the other side. And the reason that happened was one thing. The bigger dog has swum and been around so many different rivers, creeks, or whatever. They know that not all water is like that. Not all water is a death trap. Okay. But that other one had not had that experience with water yet. It didn't know that. So its only experience with water was when it thought it couldn't get out. And it is terrifying to a dog. I mean, it's
Oh, sure.
terrifying for anybody. And so,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
so the big dog didn't associate water with the danger. It associated not being able to get back up that rock face as the real danger. The other dog didn't. And then the other part of that too that was strange because this is why we film freaking everything. Um,
Yeah.
before we had gone into that side, the big dog had actually gone into that other shallower side and it had swam around and stuff like that and then came back out and then jumped into the deep part. And
Yeah.
so when it got out, it knew that other side was safe. So just because that area was dangerous because of that rock face, it knew over there it could get out. So it immediately jumped in. The other dog didn't know that. But because that was a group set of one times that that dog got in water and it scared the shit out of him, that becomes a problem. And that's how this always seems to be learned with dogs is that if you've had one bad experience, you need to increase their experiences so that that one
Yeah.
bad experience becomes a very small part of their actual life. Um, if all you do is obedience training with your dog, that's not a way for a dog to live. You once you get it set in and you do it, it's done. If you just continuously live that way, you don't have to do it. But if you come home and only thing you ever do with your dog is you teach it how to sit, you teach it how to do this, you teach it how to do that, um, it's a bad thing. And that's what the beauty of obedience work is, and any type of teaching communication work with a dog is that most people that's not all they do with their dog. So now they still do those other things. They still play with their dogs. They still go out and do this. They still let their dogs interact and stuff like that. They don't just do that. So now they've effectively almost doubled their time with the dog as opposed to just one section of it. And doubling that time you spend with your dog uh, directly relates to how well you and your dog communicate. So when people
Yeah.
attack guys that, oh, obedience training is this, obedience training is that, they seem to have this idea that that's all you do with the dog. And when I'm training a dog, that's
Right.
not all I do with a dog. We don't.
Yeah.
You can't do intensive training. Honestly, much more than like 20 minutes is like a max long time for a new dog. I mean, nobody would train. You break, you do stuff. You go off, you do things. You can't just continuously go sit up, sit up, sit up. You have to. You do other things, and it's not just training. It's not just obedience. It's not just that. You've actually
Oh,
doubled your time of interacting with your dog. And with that communication skills, you can make the other things you do with that dog less stressful for the dog. And that's what I'm getting to.
did you did you get a skip in the
Yeah, I did.
like? Okay, I'm not sure what. It's the first time I've been live, so I'm not sure what that was. But well, it looks like we're still going here. But no, so to that point, because I think I know what you're saying, Jim. But because I go about obedience in a much different way. But the whole point of the obedience is to give yourself. You should be able to attain freedom, where you can
Yeah.
go out in the world and do things with your dog. And I don't know if you saw it. I have a video on my channel where it was in the winter where I took Goose out on a frozen lake, and I made a short out of it where I talked about, you should be going on adventures with your dog. Like there's nothing greater than taking Goose to a new spot. I used to do it with my other two dogs. We went to all the different forest preserves. I used to love finding new spots to go to take them because it's like a little adventure, and that to me is like what's the point of having a dog if you can't go out in the real world and take them places and do stuff with them and it not be a headache or a chore. You dread it because you're like, oh, the dog's gonna be a nut job, it's gonna be crazy. It's like, no, I can take Goose anywhere any time of day, and it's a pleasure because um I don't have any issues with her. So that level of respect and that particular relationship dynamic is there. So I could take her off leash anywhere and she listens, and I don't have to worry about it being a negative experience for either one of us. And she gets to have new experiences, like you said. And I'm a huge proponent of pushing your dog through even things that make it uncomfortable. That's part of the adventure is you build a really resilient dog that way, and a mentally strong dog when it has all this wealth of different experiences to pull from. It's not sheltered. It doesn't spend its life because I call the backyard a glorified fish bowl. Like if you think the backyard's enough for your dog, like no, that's to me that's no different than having a fish in a fish bowl. your dog's gonna get bored of the backyard real quick, you know. It's gonna get bored of the house real quick. So, um, yeah, if you're in a position where you can't take your dog out, then there's a lot of work to do, you know, and that's but you know, to me, that just comes down to everything being lined up correctly with the relationship you've built with the dog. Because, like I said in the beginning, you know, like you could put a leash on a dog, and yeah, you've restrained it, but it doesn't mean the dog actually respects your authority. It doesn't mean the dog is going to listen to you. It doesn't mean that the dog, if you didn't take that leash off, isn't going to go run and do whatever it wants to do, and doesn't care about what you say one way or the other about it. And that to me is like the core, one of the core philosophies of what it is I'm trying to teach people is how do we build that the right way. But the foundation should consider how dogs operate. You know, what is it about the dog that I need to understand so I can communicate the right way, so I can play the right role for my dog, so I can build the right relationship, so I can build the right level of respect, not through you know, being an asshole or being overly forceful or anything like that, but just knowing how do I structure things the right way, um, to make it so that my dog just listens because it wants to, out of respect, not because I bribe it or because I force it or because of anything that wouldn't be conducive to a healthy relationship. Um, but that's, I mean, that's a really good point, Jim.
Well, if
But
you,
I
but
guess,
okay, so when you talk about the bribing and you go back, so
yeah,
one of the basic things, I'm not sure if it's something you're skipping over, is that the dog will choose the things that make its life better. Okay, day one, eye opening. That's what a dog does. That's what we do. The things that make your life better, you will do. You just do. That's how it works. So when you talk about, hey, when you're using treat training, and you're recalling a dog and you give them a treat, you're telling them essentially you're not bribing them. Dog bribing, that's not a concept a dog has. So when you're telling them, hey, when I call you, I'm going to do something that's going to make your life better, and that's a piece of food. And we could try to take out the treats and say everything or whatever, but if you stop feeding your dog, it will leave you flat out, and you'll probably go to jail. So you can't stop that. You have to feed them. Um,
sure.
so
But you
you're
would argue
not.
there's a difference between feeding and giving a dog a treat, right?
Well, is it though? Because it's food to a dog. It's what it
Sure,
is.
sure.
Um, so and dogs like food. I like food. So you're telling them when you use treats that, hey, when I do this, this is going to make your life better. So giving them a piece of food is made their life better right then. Now, as they get older and when they're younger, a lot of that is still sort of their core understanding about stuff. Oh, food, good. That's how it works. It's not a bribery situation. Um, as you get
Okay,
older,
but
though, and
can
then
I
other
explain what I
things.
mean, Jim? Can I explain what I mean by that
Yeah.
before just so you understand? Like, I guess what I'm getting at is because I've had many clients who they've taken their dogs to like Petco obedience and or they've taken these training classes and it was all centered around food. And then the dog gets a little bit older, and the German Shepherd I just had was a good example of this, where they did the Petco classes. But then they said, well, the dog's older now and it just doesn't listen. And I said, well, Um, will the dog listen to you if you have food? Yeah. Well, will the dog listen to you without the food? No. So that's what I mean, where it sets up this superficial image where the dog will perform for me to get what it wants, the food. But if the dog won't do that same thing when I don't have something that would say, as you say, make its life better, then I haven't built any real respect from the dog. I should be able to place a demand on the dog and it do it without any expectation of anything, you know, any reward or any piece of food or anything like that. And that's why I can take Goose or even my previous two dogs out in the world without anything, is because I've done everything without treats, without using food to teach it anything, without it's all just the communication that I have with the dog. You know, like for instance, like, you know, if you put two dogs in the same room together, the more dominant dog isn't going to be using food to get the other dog to do what it wants or to do what it doesn't want it to do. it's just going to communicate in a way that dog gets, and there's going to be some kind of hierarchy established between the two.
Yeah. And for the most part, yeah, that is true. You go through that, but it's also the way you build to that. You can, you will switch from, hey, what have you done for me? And if you leave your dog in that situation and you don't continue to work with him, you have made a mistake. And the way you break away from that, it's pretty simple and it's pretty easy. Um, it becomes longer and longer and longer. You start stacking instructions. You start stacking instructions. You start petting. You start doing other things. You start doing this. You start doing that. And so once you've built those initial things when the dog is young, as it gets older, that trust in you has been developed because you have what you've told them has not been bad. So when you tell them to come to do this or whatever, then you got this. What runs into the problem is that a treats can cause aggression. What you're talking
Hmm.
about, they can
Definitely.
cause that because it is a high value food source. Even when you switch to kibble or if you just use kibble, it's still that thing. So now, if you're working with kibble or treats out in a park, or if you're working with other dogs around you and you're doing that, now you've got something else that's going to pique another dog's interest and they're going to come to you. And that's where you get, I mean, there are big signs about this everywhere. Don't bring treats into a dog park because it's just stupid. You do occur that, but the way you separate apart from that and you move from that is you start spreading it out. Hey, now you've gotten this, me good, come to me good. Then you start moving it to more different areas. Um, and it's a very quick way to do it, but it's also not the only way. You can completely train a dog without using treats at all. People have done
Definitely.
it for
Definitely.
thousands of years, and they still doing it now. There are a couple of guys that it's a crazy name, but he's got some truth to it. That whole knee poo poo scenario, that is not a bad strategy. Um,
I don't think I know what you mean.
he's got a whole bunch of books and stuff. I think his name is Ivan. I don't know, but it's basically starting with a negative and then going positive, positive. And uh, and I don't mean negative where you're whipping a dog. I mean negative of saying no, sit, no, sit, and just or just making them sit, just making them sit, not luring them with a treat. And that very very closely follows what happens to a dog with other dogs. Other dogs don't give dogs treats. I mean, they
Right.
do
Right.
if it's like a sharing thing. You know, occasionally you'll have a dog. Hey, buddy. Occasionally you'll have a dog that will bring another dog a bone or a stick or something. You see that occasionally, but for the most part, they don't lure the dog with them with food. It's just not something that
Yeah.
happens. They don't have the
Right.
ability to do
Right.
that really. And so yes, and his part of that. But to me, there is no difference. It's not a bribing issue. It's just a simple way for you to instruct your dog and to communicate with them. Um, it has drawbacks, just as all do. If you're but you just work around them. I don't see it being the evil that people think it is. I just don't.
I'm not
I've
saying it's
had,
evil. It
yeah,
just, to me, it's along the same lines as trying to get my kid to do something just because it's going to get something out of it. It should do something because I need it. I need
do
my
you
child to
do
do it,
you do
you know.
anything that you don't get something out of?
Oh yeah.
What?
Well, I have to pay taxes. I don't want to do
Okay, but what you get out of
that.
that is not going to jail. You're getting something.
Sure, but that's called coercion. That's
That's not
you know.
that well. Okay, the other side of it, you're paying your taxes. You're getting roads that don't have massive potholes in them, or
Yeah,
have fewer
sure,
massive
sure,
potholes in them. You
sure.
also are
Well,
paying a police
not
force.
around here, but not around here, Jim. I wish they
Right.
used my tax dollars
Yeah,
more
all the
appropriately.
cliches things or whatever, but when you pay
Yes,
taxes,
yes,
you are getting a
yeah,
benefit from it. I mean,
right,
you're not living in
right,
Dodge City where, Wild Bill Hickok is going to shoot you and take your wife. I
right,
mean,
right,
yeah,
right,
so
right.
you're paying
I
for
guess
police, you're
I
getting
guess I would
something
say
out of it.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that. I guess what I'm
But you
saying though,
just
Jim,
did. You said, "Yeah, I do stuff all the time that doesn't." Yeah, it
yeah,
all
no,
serves you.
and we do. There are things that we do. Like for instance, people don't like their jobs, but you have to because you need a paycheck, right? But that's again, I'm not doing that because I really, really, really want to. At least maybe a job you didn't like. There are plenty of people too who love what they do, and that's they're in a
But
good
that
position.
falls to
You
intelligence and
know,
experience, right? So what you're doing there is you're transferring that into something that's not. That is intelligence experience. So if you hate your job, you think you should be making more money, or you think this is stupid or whatever, you should be able to do better. Well, you quit your job to go look for another job. That's stupid. I mean, it's not always stupid, but you really
yeah,
should try to find another job first. Yeah, you
sure,
really should do
sure.
that. And
But I
you,
guess,
so yeah.
yeah. What I'm saying though is what's my child getting? Like if I tell my kid to do something and my child isn't getting something out of it, it's just something because the kid doesn't know any better.
Mhm.
I just need you to do this, but the kid doesn't get anything out of it. Maybe the kid doesn't like it, but I need them to do it. Would it be better for the kid to do it out of respect for me or because it's going to get a reward in the end?
Um, honestly, yeah. Giving a kid a piece of candy to brush their teeth is not a good idea. I mean,
Right, right,
that's just
right.
obvious. Okay.
Yeah,
But so that's still the same thing. You're giving something to that kid, you're teaching the kid that something that is going to improve their life. Okay.
sure.
Because if they don't brush their teeth, if they don't do it, then they're going to have teeth problems when they get older. Yeah, teeth's a very valuable damn thing. I mean, you want to talk about somebody that's miserable, run into somebody that has all dentures. Their life sucks. It just
Sure. Sure.
30% less than everybody else's life just for that one thing.
Definitely. But
Um,
the child doesn't know that though.
yeah,
That's the
but they
thing.
will learn that later.
Later.
Okay,
But if my
that's right.
dog if my dog operates on say the same cognitive level as a child and my
Okay,
dog's never going to develop beyond that, then
yes, they will.
I have expectations for my dog in all contexts that it should adhere to not because it's going to get something, but because we have a particular type of relationship dynamic. Where my
Mm,
dog doesn't benefit, Goose doesn't benefit from me claiming a bowl of food from her and telling her that's mine. She doesn't benefit at all, in except to say that I'll give you this food when you adhere to that boundary, or but I could choose to not feed her. I mean, that would be irresponsible of me. But that interaction, she doesn't know that I'm not going to give her the food or I am going to give her the food. All she knows is I'm keeping this thing from you. And it would be that same way with any dog, where the dog is not immediately getting some benefit from that. But what we are building is a baseline of respect where the dog understands you can't do X, Y, and Z to get this thing that you want. Now the dog will adhere to that because I'm demonstrating that I'm the stronger of the two of us, and I'm establishing boundaries it now has to follow. Then the dog gets what it wants,
Okay.
right? But it's
But this
but
doesn't that
it
doesn't
but
break down the original thing. So when you say that the dog doesn't get a benefit from it, so back to the kid with the hey buddy, they get to the kid that has a brushing their teeth. They may not want to, they may not, but if they do it for a while and you make them because that's your responsibility, you make them do it. Um, Later in life, maybe even a year later, if they stop brushing their teeth, they're going to notice the difference immediately, because when you don't, that stuff builds up in there. You get horrible breath. There's
oh sure,
consequences to it. And so in
consequences, yeah, yeah,
everything that we do has consequences. There
that's
is
consequence,
no
yeah,
That's why positive only training is not a thing. Life's not like
yeah,
that. I mean, it's just
right,
not. So
I agree.
you when you teach a dog, and a dog will figure those things out very quickly. They they see and notice things at a level that we don't, because maybe we just don't pay that much attention, and they do. But the things that make their life better, they know. They learn it very quickly, like simple things of not running across. They may unfortunately run into, hey buddy, all right, I know. We've been in here for a while. Come on, sit. Uh,
I would slightly disagree with that though, Jim, because I've known many dogs for one reason or another will engage in the same pattern of behavior that causes a negative consequence. Like say for instance the dog that swallows a sock or something and now it has an intestinal blockage and they got to do surgery. maybe that dog goes back and does the same thing. And the dog can't necessarily make that connection sometimes between that thing I did and this negative consequence, where we have to be the ones to ensure
Yeah.
that those things don't happen, right? But that's not to say that in all circumstances a dog will always know what's good for it, because you can have a dog even that runs across the street get hit by a car, and it make that maybe it won't make that connection, and maybe it lives, and maybe it runs right back out in the street a week later after it recovers, and it risks the same type of thing happening. You have dogs that are like that, where we have to be the ones to make sure that we establish things correctly, where that dog is adhering to our leadership at all times. Because otherwise, it doesn't know any better, and it can't comprehend the human world the way we can. And so
Mhm.
things like streets and roads and cars, instinctually it may understand, like, this noisy thing is heading my way and I should avoid that. But there are dogs that just don't care.
So if you take that back to what one of our disagreements was about, was that a dog, in my standing, that a dog cannot communicate as well as a human to a dog because another dog does not understand those things. Another dog can't teach a dog to do these things. So, and that is a very basic part of it. When you just said that a dog doesn't understand these things that can get him hurt, that we do understand them and we can guide them past that, well, that makes you 1,000 times better than a dog to raise a dog.
Not necessarily, though, because I could just
How?
as easily, I could just as I could, if I put a dog on a leash to keep it from running in the road. Okay, I've restrained the dog, but if you put two dogs in the same area together and let them loose, they're more likely to follow each other than the dog follow you, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
So
Sometimes.
so what I'm saying is, I'm just talking in terms of communication, where I'm saying two dogs can communicate with each other far better than one human can communicate with another dog. Where, like I said, I can put restraints up to keep that dog from running in the road, but that does not mean that I can communicate better to that dog, get my point across better, more effectively than another dog could. Because that other dog doesn't understand the human world just like the first dog doesn't.
That's right.
But when it comes to, say, the rules of the dog world, well, two dogs are going to be able to establish that far quicker than a human and a dog can. Which is, again, why we need the tools. The tools compensate for our inability to communicate to the effectiveness as a dog can.
The tools kind of compensate for our lack of um, agility and movement that a dog has. Uh,
Sure.
that's it. Try to catch a chihuahua. Yeah, shit. So um, we just simply cannot.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are probably. I don't think Usain Bolt could catch any decent, healthy, medium-sized dog. So that is the thing a tool helps us do. We cannot catch them. If they do something that we cannot control, we can't catch them. A dog can catch them and catch back up and stop them. That is the only thing the tools improve. Because that gives me the ability, hey, I can hold a dog, but so if that dog takes running off to go that way, and like a herding dog, exactly what a herding dog does, hey, it'll run up, catch him, and turn him. Well, we can't do that. We physically can't do that because we don't have that speed. That's what the tools give
Right.
us. The mental stuff is not something we need. Well, not help on, but it's stuff that we are traditionally stronger than they are on. But
Yeah,
we
that's
can't
where I
have that
disagree.
ability.
That's where I disagree. Like a dog dominating another dog can happen far quicker than a human. Now, there are some dogs where I can get that job done very quickly, but there are other dogs where the dog don't give a fuck if I communicate in a strong way. But if Goose does it, that dog's going to respond right away. Where I'm saying that the all the subtleties that go into dog to dog communication are just not present with human to dog communication. We can get close, but like, take a prong collar, for instance. The goal that they say the prong collar is supposed to mimic, like, the teeth of another dog. But the prong collar is not going to come anywhere near feeling like when a dog does it, and that you don't have the same level of force, or the energetic component of when a dog uses its mouth on another dog, that same way that prong collar. It's just not the same thing.
Yeah, I
you
don't.
know.
I've heard that argument about the prong collars. I don't. As far as what that actually mimics, I don't know who invented the prong collar or whatever. I know that the earliest depiction I've ever found of a prong collar was used in a very different way than that, in a very bad way. And it's it. I'm pretty sure since the person drew it in his book that he thought it was his own invention. Um, and it's not in any way like he used it for stuff that we don't use it for with dogs. There
Yeah.
may be some disciplines that still use that way, but the prong collar was the first one I've ever seen. And there may have been some before. First one I'd ever seen historically documented was actually just a leather collar with nails inserted from the outside with a pointy end facing the dog. And its main use was to teach a dog to grab something so that you would hold the collar and twist it so that the dog would reflexively bite something in front of it. And that is grabbing. And that's what it was for. So the whole other stuff about um, mimicking a dog's bite, I think you're right. That is not even remotely what that does.
Oh no. Yeah.
It's the having I mean, when you watch dogs that do that, when they, when one, pins another one and they'll literally put their entire mouth around the dog's neck and hold it on the ground. That is
Yeah.
not the same thing. That is a
No.
whole different level of a
The whole
presence in
different.
that other dog's
Yeah.
life. That is a
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
different level than a prong
Yeah.
collar.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it is overpowering and also less painful. So that is the exact thing you want, right? An
Yeah.
overpowering thing that is not painful.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what that does for a dog. They do this. And a
Definitely.
prong
Definitely.
collar does not do that. But there again, if you have to walk your dog and the dog yanks you off your damn feet and it's going to get killed because you can't control it, put a prong collar on it and take it to somebody that can help you. I mean, you just have to do what you have to do. You
Sure.
can't let your dog die. You can't train a dog to
Yeah.
stay.
Right.
And
Right.
that's just a
Right.
simple thing. But you're
I
exactly
guess
right.
maybe you would to make it maybe clearer. I guess what I would say is the way two dogs communicate with each other is always going to make sense, right? They don't misunderstand each other. But there are many, many, many cases where humans try to communicate with their dog, and that dog doesn't. The communication lines are totally scrambled. That
Mhm.
dog doesn't understand what the human wants because the human's not communicating as effectively as a way another dog can because those two animals understand each other always. There's no misunderstandings, right? But we, unless I teach somebody how to communicate the right way to their dog, they're always going to be talking past each other, you know.
And
I guess that's my best explanation, I guess, of
but
what I mean.
so the other side of that, though, I would argue that it's easier to learn the minutia of working with a dog, the consistencies, the stable environments, the spatial environments. That's easier for us to learn than it is for a dog to learn. Hey, that sweet tasting liquid will kill you because it's glycol. Dogs don't know that.
Sure, sure,
So
yeah, yeah,
we can learn that other shit. The dog is you have to teach a dog that sweet tasting stuff, but it's not how you do it. But you have to teach a dog not to drink glycol if it sees it.
sure,
And
yeah,
the dog can learn that. And the dog, whether it can actually teach that in the real world is different. I mean, they can teach, and you'll see them teach how to hunt. They will. Hey, no, go around this way, go around this, follow this, keep up, stay together. And they will. And what to fight and what not to fight, what to be scared of and what not to be scared of. They learn that, and they put those boundaries in with themselves. Where when they're puppies, they fight and argue, and they learn pretty quick. Okay, well, I can do this, but if I do this, I'm going to piss them off. So don't do
right,
that. They learn that
right,
very fast,
right,
and they learn that at a very young age. So that's basically their limit there. So that's very easy to copy. It's very easy to copy. Um, and we do that all the time. Every human can do that. No dog can say, "Hey, there's something on my back. I need to go to a vet." They don't do that. We do that.
Sure,
We go, okay,
sure.
there's something here. I'm going to take you to the vet. Um, since survival is the ultimate goal of life and the ultimate thing, surviving is the higher trump card. And that's the one that overrules everything else. Because if your dog is dead, it's not enjoying life. And we can teach a dog to survive in our world better than a dog can.
Sure, in our world. Yeah,
But here's the
in our
thing,
world.
every place a dog goes is our world.
Well, I would make a distinction where, wild dogs, since they're born and raised in the wild, they have to understand quickly how to navigate the real world. We take dogs into our home and we shelter them, and we have to teach them how to operate in. They live much closer to our human world. Like you, you might see coyotes and whatnot crossing the street, a busy road, but I don't often find that wild animals are very keen on staying away from danger. They don't typically run towards danger.
They have to know what the
Um,
danger is, though.
right. And so those are the instincts that are lost for when we have domestic dogs. And it's not because they're domestic, but it's just because of the nature of us bringing them to the homes we have, where they spend most of their time inside a house or inside an apartment, and so they don't have other dogs to show them how to navigate the real world like say wild dogs do. And so I guess that's the crux of what I'm saying is if you have a pack of wild dogs, they're going to follow each other. They're going to teach each other how to navigate the world in general far quicker than what a human can teach a dog. Just based on the limitations of our forms of communication, our styles of communication. I can teach Goose to not run in a road, but that's only because I built a certain relationship with her. You bring a dog here that I don't know very well, and that dog is a lot more likely to follow Goose than the dog is than is likely to follow me, just because they can get that understanding established right away, and it might take me a little bit of time to do that. And so this happened a lot with my previous two dogs too. She wanted to follow Bruno, like when they escaped the yard, she was she followed Bruno. Bruno was the leader, and she went everywhere he went. But when I came out to get him, they'd see me and then they'd run towards me, and then it was time to go back home. But they just have that way of connecting with each other instantaneously that we don't have, and that I think things people attribute to connection that is misinterpreted sometimes, where people are kind of projecting their humanness onto the dog, and they're seeing things in the dog that aren't really the reality of, because if you put another dog with the dog's going to interpret things in a much different way. And so oftentimes I'll use Goose as like a filter where she'll tell me the truth about that dog, and it helps me to not project my human interpretation sometimes onto a dog that maybe I'm not understanding
That's a
100%.
that is a crazy when you're talking about it using as a human filter, and that belief is very very strong, and it kind of is true. You see somebody with a dog and they're playful or whatever, you don't immediately think psychopath. You know what I'm saying? Just somebody you've never seen before and they're petting a dog. You don't think that's Charles Manson. It doesn't enter your head.
Yeah.
And that is a very powerful thing. And there are some truths. I've noticed dogs that do things weird. One of the things that we work on with other animals too goes very directly to that, and that is interaction with cops. Um, a lot of dogs I work with are very big. My own dog is big; she's just sweet.
Mm.
But and policemen in general carry themselves a different way when they're at work. When they walk up to a car, they're in a different world. They're in a different world than we are. They do that 100 times a day. I mean, my God, it's a very dangerous situation. So
Oh,
they
sure it
carry
is.
themselves a
Sure it
certain
is.
way. They do. They
Yeah.
throw stuff like that. But and what that can run into, if your dog has not been around somebody like that, the first time they see them, it can set your dog off because the dog is they're seeing what you're seeing. This person is carrying himself direct. He's doing this. He's talking this. He's talking this way because that's how they control situations. It's how they're trained
Definitely.
to not
That
to
that's a
escalate stuff.
yeah,
So a dog will
project authority. Yeah.
react poorly to that because to them that means something else. And it kind of means exactly what the cop is trying to tell you. Don't do anything stupid. It's not going to work out. That's what they're trying to tell
Yeah.
you, right? So,
Yeah.
well, you can run into a problem with that um, it, where the dog will react to that, and you can get into a lot of trouble. You won't get into well, you will, but your dog could get killed. You
I've seen
know,
it. It's
yeah,
sad too, where a dog will shoot or a cop will shoot a dog, and sometimes it's like really you really didn't have to do that, you know.
it's a close call,
Um,
man. I mean,
yeah.
you don't know if you got yeah. I've never heard of them doing it to a Chihuahua.
No, and
So there's
that's the
yeah.
video. I was actually thinking of that video. It wasn't a Chihuahua, but it was a little dog, and the dog was just barking in the front yard. That dog wasn't a threat, and that cop just immediately took his gun out, shot the dog, and I'm like, really? That right in front of the owner too, and I'm thinking that dog was not a threat to you, man. What are you thinking? You know?
There's a lot about that, and I don't know. The only thing that I always think about when you see those situations is the policeman has to keep himself safe.
No, and
And
I don't
yeah,
dispute that.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like you know, any other person that was standing in front of that dog, they would have kept their distance, but they wouldn't have been threatened by that dog. It was a little dog, you know.
So one of the
And
things we talk
yeah,
about
you're
experiences is introduce dogs to police. When
yeah,
you're walking around, introduce them to police so they get used to it. Another thing, it's a small part of it is cops typically wear all black, and
yeah,
that can be an issue for some animals. It's they see it differently. It goes whatever. Most people don't wear solid black all the time, so that's a part of it. And so, but once you teach a dog or desensitize them or whatever that this is not necessarily a bad thing, you relieve that, and that's not something another dog can teach.
sure,
Um, they can do it if, they go play together with them, but you have to put them together no matter what. When you're doing the stuff with your dogs, and Beckman does the stuff with his, and I've done it too, we are controlling that situation. Your dog is
definitely,
communicating with that other dog, but you're also ensuring that it does not go badly.
definitely.
In the wild, dogs really don't have quite that ability. And so they basically just don't do it. I mean,
Mhm.
you're going to introduce your pups to a strange male dog walking around. They don't do that shit. I mean, because, that's probably not going to be good. So,
Yeah,
but
they
we set
avoid the
those
danger.
things up.
Yeah, they avoid the danger, avoid the unfamiliar. Yeah,
Yeah. So what you're doing about, introducing your dog to another dog to help communicate, hey, don't fight with dogs. This is stupid. Um, yes, that dog is doing that, but that dog is doing that because you let it there. You created that. You also created that by how you raised your dog. Just as Beckman has created that with, I think that dog's name is Prince, and I'm not overly voting
Prince.
on it, but
Yeah,
he
Prince.
does it a
Yeah,
lot. He's got like thousands of videos, and so,
yeah, yeah.
and that dog does. But he's right. He's trained that dog. He's raised that dog, and he's made it that, or helped it make that way. Probably some of that was natural,
Oh,
just part
definitely,
of it,
definitely.
dog.
Yeah.
And with yours, it's there, but you've developed that. So
Yeah.
you have created that.
I think I know what you're saying here, Jim. So maybe we can come to an agreement here. I think that maybe just in certain contexts, in specific contexts, the dog to dog communication is superior, and in other contexts, we have ways of understanding and imparting an understanding to the dog that another dog cannot. I think I see what you're saying, where there are certain things that in our world we a dog's initial reaction is bad to something, and we have to show them that this thing is nothing to be feared. And another dog can't do that. Another dog might join in on the negative reaction. I think I understand what you're saying. So in that sense, I would agree with you. Where there are contexts where, yeah, if you put two dogs together, the one dog's not going to be able to impart that wisdom to the other dog, but we can.
Mhm. And so,
Okay.
and okay, so specifically with the dogs, Prince and yours, and everybody that's got a neutral dog, um, it's not just that, okay, now then when you bring those two together, you're controlling that environment. You've created that environment. You've in your head said, okay, hey, I know I can help this dog learn this by putting it with another dog that can teach it, can show it. Okay. And so you're the one that has designed that. That is then your communication. That is you communicating to your dog because you're making that happen. You're allowing that to happen. So you are in control of that. So, the decision of letting your dog play with another dog is based upon what you trust in that dog and what you go with. So when you're teaching that dog by introducing it to yours, that is you doing that. That is
Sure,
not the dog
sure.
doing that. So
Yep.
that is the dog's greatest communication thing you're talking about. But now you have made it your tool. It is your
Yes.
tool.
Yes.
So
No, it is my
our
tool.
tools, yeah, are better
Yeah.
than dogs are because we have
I
that
guess
ability.
I guess where I would slightly disagree with that. I understand what you're saying. Where I would disagree with that though is the only reason I would use Goose as a tool that way is because of her ability to effectively communicate in a way that I can't. So what
Mhm.
I'm saying is to say in the context of if I bring a dog here and what Beckman does, the reason we use the dog in that manner is to get that dog to the other side in a much quick, it's like speed running the whole process where it might take me months to get that point across to that dog. Goose can do it in seconds. You know what I'm saying? Or well, it wouldn't take me months. Maybe take me days or weeks, but Goose can get it done very, very quickly.
But
And
yeah,
that's just not, I'm basically, it's basically like what we do as humans with any other tool is uh you know, building a fire took us however long to do that, but now I can grab a bic and just there I got fire. We speed run the process of making fire with the flick of a switch. I'm speed running the discipline of a dog by using Goose as my tool because she can do it quicker and more effectively than I can. But I totally understand what you're saying though, Jim, and I do agree with you. I don't disagree with what you're saying.
so uh, I can't remember what the other point was, but there's a lot to it,
That's
and
a
I
that's
don't
okay.
like
That's
the
okay.
thing that you get into is this idea that one way is the only way. That
Yeah,
thing always drives me nuts.
yeah, yeah,
I honestly, you know, it would be great, honestly, if that was true, right? That that one method ruled them all, one ring to rule them all. That would be
yeah.
great, but it's just not that way. And
Mhm.
when you find yourself getting into these closed ideas that this is the only way to do this, this is the only way this happens, um, it causes problems because it's
Mhm.
just not how the world is. One dog will see it one way, another dog will see it another way. And so if you lock yourself in, it's this philosophy that your beliefs and your thoughts are absolutely right, and that is very dangerous.
Yeah.
Okay?
No, I
And
agree with you. And in
yeah,
fact, I've said
yeah,
I've said that on my channel, and to me, because I think that there's a foundational knowledge we should have about dogs, right? Where to me the most important thing we need to understand is that dogs see things in terms of a social hierarchy. Dogs see things, in terms of a dominance. Dominance plays a role in that. But you have to take each individual dog as they are. You have to approach everything from like who is the dog in front of me? What I did with the last dog, I got to do things differently based on this dog's temperament, based on this dog's problems, and so I adjust accordingly based on the dog that's in front of me. But I still operate from that same foundational knowledge, um, because not all dogs are dominant. You have a lot of different temperaments, and so I'm not going to approach a dominant dog the same way I would say the border collie I had yesterday. It's two different. That's why I agree. It's not you don't have this one system to do everything with every dog the same way. I agree. It's not the way to go. You have to go things on an individual basis for sure.
mhm. Border collies always working with them. They amaze me at their speed. Like they can go from one thing to another extremely fast.
Yeah, they're
It's
incredible
because, like,
dogs, aren't
you
they?
you see one dog, and you're kinda looking at them. It's 2 big beefy dogs or whatever, 2, 2 man stopper type dogs, and they're interacting, and you're there, and there's kinda some warning that something's gonna happen. There's some buildup. Border collies, um, not really. I mean, they will just move. It's like they make a decision and they do it. And it's I guess it's part of their genetics, like some other things. An extreme belief in their actions make their world.
Yeah,
And so
they're very
they
interesting
so they can
dogs.
go
They're very
from
interesting dogs.
hey to thwack, and then it's like, what the hell, man? What? So they're very quick about it, and I've often
Yeah,
found working with border collies and all the different iterations you see, that I'm always amazed of how close those dogs interact and work and move like coyotes and wolves do. They have a smaller stature, a lighter weight.
yeah, you're
Um,
right about that. Yeah,
yeah,
they do
they've got
kind
the
of move like
narrower
that, don't they?
shoulders that are narrower. They've got the longer
Yeah,
nose and the faces. They're they're very close to what you kind of think. And like, if you've ever tracked a dog or tracked a wolf or a coyote or whatever, um, wolves are a little different, but coyotes, and we don't have a lot of wolves where I live. We don't have any wolves where I live. So the thing you don't notice, you see a big paw print or something in the mud, and you're looking at it, and you're thinking, "My God, what the hell is that? That's some kind of wild animal." No, coyotes leave very little paw prints. They don't weigh enough to push you in. That big dog print is somebody's big dog. That's what it is. When you try a coyote, those prints are tiny. They're little, um, and uh, border collies and those type of shepherd dogs typically are like that. The narrow shoulders, the lighter muscle structures,
yep.
um, and the speed, and not a lot of posing and imposing behaviors. They don't bow up and stare at something.
No,
Yeah,
no.
they're looking at it, they address it, and they move. And they don't really give it time to figure out what's going to happen. They're like, oh, that thing went that way. I'm going to get it and bring it back, and they just do that.
Yep.
Whereas other dogs might bark at it. Hey, what the hell are you doing? And but they always amaze me, and they also do some other things too that they're very struck like they're some when they're younger and even when they're older, they will always have or can have some skittishness to them. That
Oh yeah.
skittishness that
Oh
we
yeah.
always interpret that
Yeah.
way, where
Yeah.
the head's
Yep.
down, they're looking up or whatever, or they're looking at things from the side or looking at it from this side,
Yep.
and they're moving around. But you know what? That is very similar to a coyote and those animals.
Mhm.
Coyotes
It's
don't
very yep.
bow up to you.
Yep.
You see one, you're not going to see it again. I mean, they're
Yeah.
gone. Um, and so I think a lot of that is, and they were the animals that guarded sheep and everything else for millennia in different areas. I wonder just how much intermixing there really was, because they have maintained
I don't
that.
know. Well,
They're
I don't know if you saw my video on what was his name? It was the ethologist. It was what was his name?
there's a couple of those guys I like on YouTube. They're very good. They're very funny. They're very good.
Yeah. Well, oh, I can't remember. Well, anyway, I did a video on some. There was some lectures from this ethologist, Serpinger, Bear. No, anyway, I can't remember his name for some reason, but he was talking about how his work has led him to the conclusion that the commonly held belief that dogs came from wolves, there's not really
Yeah.
any evidence to support that, and that coyotes are actually when they map out the genetic lineage, coyotes are the closest relative that they can actually show evidence for. So there might be some truth to that. That's why maybe dogs like border collies sort of have a lot of that similarity with say a coyote. I don't know.
Yeah. But they definitely are a little different, and some, just depending on what you like in a dog, they can be incredible pets. They truly are. Ah,
Definitely,
man,
definitely.
and people don't always understand sometimes though that they can be a little bitey, a little grabby.
Oh
They can
yeah.
snap a little bit, and so you just
Oh
have to
yeah.
work with them. And
Definitely.
it's one of those things that's a that esprit de corps, or whatever you want to call it, to where a dog believes its actions directly infect and make its life better. That's exactly what you want. And that's what people typically say they want. They want a dog, like a Malinois. They're very strong in that. Border Collie is very strong in the fact that, hey, that I want this and I want this and I'm right. And they want that. But when they get that, they don't realize exactly what that means. That's not just running free through the woods. That is, I'm going to figure out how to get out when I want to get out. So I'm going to think that this is the right thing to do. And teaching them is, I don't say harder, but it's definitely different than say some other dogs. Teaching a dog that's intact, working with a dog that's intact, is harder, not worse, but it's much more intensive. It's much more time consuming, and it's a little longer. You run into it with those. When you do that, you see something that you don't always think about. We always assume that the same dog that we're working with today is the same dog that we worked with a week before or whatever. We don't often take into account that that dog could be a little different that day. That dog could not be in the mood to do this. That dog might not be ready to do this, or maybe that dog no longer finds this thing is the thing to do. They may feel like, oh, I want to run a little bit more. Just as people have good and bad days, dogs do as well. Now, I'm not saying that they're not supposed to, um, you know, return to you when you instruct them to. I'm not saying that they're not supposed to jump on you. I'm not saying that that gives them free reign, but it does give pause to not try to train in a bad situation. So if your dog is doing something, and you're wanting to train it and they're not wanting to, uh, you don't stop training. You just train something a little else and do that instead. You don't just continuously harangue, try to lure, trying to coax, trying to correct the dog to get something. If they're not in the mood for that, you don't just keep hammering it home. You move to something else and you call it. Because if you do that for very long, you're going to damage it. If they're not
I
ready
would
for
agree with
that,
that, Jim. Yeah, because it
yeah,
just becomes unproductive at that point.
yeah, that's right.
It's not,
Yeah,
yeah, and it, like with Goose, there are some days where I get up, we're ready to go for the morning walk, and she's like, I don't want to go. Okay, well, fine, all right. I guess we'll go later then. It's, you know, it doesn't matter to me, So it's not like she's being disobedient. I grab my coat and she says, I'm not in the mood. All right, whatever. I respect it. Maybe you're not feeling that great today. I don't know. And it's just one of those things you just got to take into account. And now if it happened days and days in a row, because I've had it too, where she's just being a little lazy, and the next day rolls around and she's like, I don't want to go. It's like, no, sweetheart, you can't be just laying around all day. Let's go for a little walk. It doesn't have to be long. Um, but there's a difference in that between that than I think that maybe your dog being sick, that's
yeah,
something
yeah.
that's like, if the dog's sick, okay, we gotta, take it easy. We'll get you some whatever you need, and it's you rest. You don't want to put too much on a dog that's just not feeling good. It's just
Mhm.
let him rest, let him be. All right, Jim. Well, I'm gonna let you go, but if there's anything else you want to say or anything, can
That was
anybody find
fun.
you
You
anywhere?
want to
Or
do this again?
yeah, yeah,
I think this
hell
is
yeah,
good. We
we can do
didn't we
this
didn't
again,
start
definitely.
screaming at each other. We didn't do all this
No,
stuff.
no, no, and that's what
Yeah.
I was hoping you didn't come into it thinking that that's what I was gonna
No, I
do.
didn't think so.
Because I want to encourage more of these with whoever wants to do them. Anything like I said that people just, and I've been doing that. People that leave comments on my videos that disagree, it's like, well, you're welcome to come on the channel and we can talk it out. But you know, I just want this to also be a demonstration of people what they can expect if they do that, where it's not going to be like this this beat down, or like you said, like we don't. I agree with you where it shouldn't be this whole like gotcha, just trying to set up little traps or what. It's no, let's just have a discussion and
And
just
that
just discuss our differences and our positions.
it's a strange concept sometimes, but the other thing I'd mentioned that some of the stuff, because I've seen it in the past, is zero sum game,
Yeah.
zero sum strategy, zero sum actions and manipulations. And oddly, that is one of the things that you have to teach a dog. Okay, that um, in the world that I'm providing a dog to live in, it's no longer zero sum. If if this dog takes this from you, it doesn't mean you've lost it because that's not what I'll allow. Okay, there's one for you. There's one for here. You no longer have the. You don't have to prosper by taking from another, and that is a concept that completely eliminates resource guarding and all those other things. And you talk about, or maybe that is a concept people don't think you can teach a dog. It very much is. That life does not have to be a zero sum game if you do it properly. And that's what our intellectual thinking has taught us. Now, if somebody's coming at you with a gun and a knife, yes, this is a zero sum game right
That's a
there.
zero sum
Right?
game, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Somebody's
There's no
got to
other.
go.
Yeah. But very rarely, I mean, just very rarely in our life does that ever happen. I mean, it just
Yeah,
doesn't. And
yeah.
if it has happened, maybe we've done something pretty stupid to be there. So,
Maybe,
and
yeah,
that's the
made some
same way
wrong
with
decisions
dogs.
somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. And so, have you ever seen two dogs? Um, there used to be a lot of videos of this where they have two, big dogs, Dobermans or whatever, and they're playing, and then they'll just inadvertently kind of end up on top of each other. Not on top, but like one's neck is over the other one's back.
Yeah.
And
Oh
it's
yeah.
just been
Yeah.
complete accident because they turned to
Yeah.
whatever. Okay, well now they're in a pretty messed up situation because okay, what the hell? I mean, it's a Mexican standoff, and so
Yeah.
that that's the thing. I mean, you that could be a problem whether those two dogs are perfectly fine or whatever. You might just have a splash of them reacting because they suddenly ended up like that. And so what you
Yeah.
want to do is try to keep that ending up from happening. And then as the dog gets older, letting that happen with dogs that are not going to react that way. And so if you get your dog into enough situations, like I said, a set of data so that the only dog they've ever met, if that dog attacked them, they're going to be very hard to deal with another dog. If they've only met a couple of dogs and that dog attacked them, they're going to be very hard. And that's where the puppy thing comes into. You have to very seriously, you know, allow what dogs you allow to raise the dog you want it to be with. Um, and, and when you teach them that life is not a zero sum game, they will change. That's it.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much, Jim. Is there anybody? I know you have a YouTube channel. Is there any and you want to promote? Like people can find you or go watch some of your
Now,
stuff? Is
oh well, there. I don't. My YouTube channels are not. I have like 14. They're not
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
for.
Okay.
Yeah, they are. I don't use them for any kind of monetary value. I don't know what it would take to make a
I
YouTube
got you.
monetary value. When you start looking at those numbers, you're like, "What the hell, man?" It would take CBS a year to become a monetized channel on YouTube. So, I use them for different things. And they're most of them are done specifically when I spend time with a dog. I spend a lot of time with a dog. Um, the videos that I put up are to allow the client to see the
Okay.
dog and what it's capable of. So
I
almost
got you.
all of those are that way, and it's worked fairly well. I don't know how you monetize. You see all those YouTube guys. Oh, this is how you monetize a channel, and I'm thinking, I'm not so
Yeah.
sure what the
It's
return on
what
investment for that is. I mean,
do
yeah,
you? Yeah. I'm sure. I assume you know the numbers, right? What you have to reach. Is that
I
because
have
you?
seen them. Yeah, I have seen them. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It does take a little while, and of course they don't. When it comes to the watch hours, they don't want to factor in the shorts. It's like, oh, thanks, thanks, thanks. I get more views on my shorts, but you don't want to factor. Think, okay, I see how it works. But well,
And
now
it's
because I know your
uh,
your dog business. I don't know if is your. Do you want to advertise your dog business or anything, or is that
yeah,
public
it's
or
it's public. It's Triple Creek Kennels. There is no phone number really associated with it. I've never
okay?
associated a line
Triple
with it.
Creek,
All my
Triple
stuff
Creek
is on
Kennels.
there.
Okay,
People can reach to it.
excellent.
It's a lot of like everybody, I think. I mean, I don't think anybody ever actually just decides they're going to do this, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
kind of work with a dog, it works out, you enjoy it. Somebody else sees that, you kind of help them out, and it kind of goes from there. It's kind of a, I don't want to say an organic um, a thing, but it does seem to be that way. The folks that you see that seem to go into it and say, "Hey, I've got this new idea. This is the better mousetrap that I've built." And well, they're going to come out with a book in about 6 months. They are, and they're going to
Yeah.
flame people up.
Yeah.
They're going to
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
fear monger stuff all over the place,
Yeah.
and that's just who wants to live like that? And there's just
I
nothing.
don't.
I mean,
I don't.
don't get it at all.
And usually those are the ones that are just out for a quick buck. It's not their heart, they're not their heart's not in the right spot. When you see it, well, speaking of CBS, you see how quickly he disappeared. It was like he hasn't posted in like a month.
I was actually
Uh
talking about the network company.
oh, I got you. Okay, well,
Yeah,
yeah, see well,
yeah,
there you go.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Same
yeah.
thing. Same
Yeah.
thing.
I do know who you're talking about. The guy. I mean, his marketing is crazy. So, um,
Yeah.
I bought his book.
Did
I
you? Yeah.
did. I do buy just about every kind of literature there
That's all
is
right.
and
Yeah.
stuff, and I got that, and it's not bad. I don't know. I've never seen the method he uses before about. So when you put questions at the end of a chapter or something like that, it's a textbook thing, math books, whatever, but it has another name, and it's called a forced review. Because if you do that, you're forced to review what you just read, as opposed to moving on to
Yeah.
something else.
Okay. I
And
got you.
I've never seen a dog book do that before, and so I was like, "Well,
Yeah.
that's interesting." And it's I did see some of the stuff that when I read through it and everything, I did just immediately think, okay, he didn't do this because it is such. But he may have. I mean, that was just my first
Yeah.
reaction, and I don't mean it because I don't
Right.
know. He could have. I have
Yeah.
no way of knowing. I just because it's so. There's a lot of work. I mean,
Yeah. It's a lot of
just
work. Yeah.
spacing that shit. I mean, he's got it is in a textbook format, and it's lined out. It's well, the paragraphs aren't shifted or whatever. That takes work. So whoever did it,
Yeah.
and I mean, he says it's his, so it probably is. But when I first
Yeah.
looked at it, I did the same thing you guys thought about. I was like, there's no way he did this. But it's because it's such a monumental thing. And we
Yeah.
talked about it briefly one time. And I said, there's some stuff in there that, yeah, I think it was a little different. But dude, just doing this alone is such a massive amount of work and accomplishment.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
even remotely suggest you do something else because that would be
Right.
stupid. It's
Right.
like telling me you should have used a different doorknob on that damn house. All right. Well, I built
Yeah.
the house. All right. That's kind of the
Well,
thing. It's not the
you know,
doorknob.
what didn't make sense to me, I'm like, well, if I'd written a book and spent all that time writing a book, then I would just make videos demonstrating the different parts of the book and how they apply to a dog. That's how I would sell the book.
I
And so I'm
know.
like, why aren't you just posting you want to post videos like talking shit about everybody? Well, just post different sections of your book and have a dog and show how it I don't know why he didn't just do that, but
Well, I mean, it's his
uh,
thing, but as far as the book, like, I thought it was a pretty smart idea of what he did too. He lists the hardback version for like 150 bucks or something like that.
yeah,
Well, you
yeah.
obviously just don't need to print that shit. So then you release the PDF version for $15.
15
Okay.
bucks, yeah.
But that's not a tough decision. I mean, that's
No,
pretty
no,
much
it isn't.
let's just
Not
get the
at all.
PDF. And so
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe he printed a few, but I wouldn't have. Maybe
Right,
screw
right.
that.
Yeah.
No, PDF. And so
No.
that and it's the cost of a Whopper basically in today's world. A double
Yeah.
Whopper with
Yeah.
cheese, you're right there.
Right.
So
Just for the hell of it. He's like, let's see what's in this book.
yeah,
There's nothing wrong with that. Sure.
yeah.
Definitely.
And it said it was not wrong. I mean, there's
No.
nothing in there that's evil or bad or anything. It's
Right, right, right.
uh,
It's not like Mein Kampf or something,
and there
but
there are things in there, and like I said, I did read it. So so in this world, it seems to be he has something in there that it's either 90 days to teach a dog something or 90. I think it's 90 days. He talks about hey for a something to be set in as part of a dog's life, whether taught, learned, whatever, is 90 days. It said it takes 90 days. Well, Everybody in the world is going to come up. No, it doesn't take that long. No, it only takes 10 days. No, it takes much longer than that. But you know what? Where's the argument? Okay, so if you did it for 90 days, it it had to have at least gotten better. You know what I'm saying? It would have
I would
had to have
hope
at
in
least
90.
gotten better.
I would
Huh?
hope in 90 days. Yeah, I would
Yeah,
hope
I
in
mean, it
90
had to
days
have
it's
got
got
it.
better.
Most likely it does work. So there's no argument to be made there. I mean, yeah, he says 90 days, but what's the difference? It's not like you're only going to own your dog 80 days, so you can do anything for 90 days. And I'm
Sure.
not being a champion of it. What I'm talking about is that
Yeah.
people seem to want to find every disagreement with something, and
Yeah.
it's some of it is a lot of times they just don't want to do it. I mean, I'm
Yep.
like, no,
Yep.
I'm not going to do that because that's just stupid. Okay, well,
Yep.
play with your
Yep.
dog for 90 days. That's horrible. I mean, who would do that? Are you kidding me? Just do
Right.
that.
Right.
Doesn't
Right.
matter.
Right.
If it works in 5, it works in 5. And so that's not a point to argue about. It doesn't matter. Um, I have a case in point. I have a very, very intelligent friend of mine. We grew up together. He grew up with dogs just like I did, and everything. And he got a new puppy, and he had it for a while. And the dog is very well behaved. He does great. And he had this was before I was trained dogs. He had used a trainer and he used a decollar and everything like that. And the dog is it kind of works. But one of the things we were talking about, I said, a lot of people don't really believe in taking young puppies out in public to where they react with other dogs. That it's not necessarily such a great idea to put a small puppy in a dog park with big dogs. It's just not a good idea. It can be bad. And
Yeah.
his immediate reaction was, "No, that's what I do with my dog, and he's perfectly fine." And so he was wrong. He was like completely wrong. Um,
Yeah.
See, but he wanted to disagree with what I said. He's a good friend of mine. I mean, we all have friends. He's one I'll have a body for. So um, he just generally disagreed with what I said without realizing that he didn't actually do that. He did take his dog out places, and he did take him to the park, but he has another dog too, and those 2
Uh,
dogs played together before he went out there. So he wanted
okay.
to just disagree with a point as opposed to truly listening to what the point was.
Just for
And
the sake of disagreement.
that's right. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
that's where you get into, like, when we said, "Hey, look, this is what I'm talking about this and this is his." But it's not that cut in stone. What separating those dogs and watching them when they're eating is a very good way to stop whatever you want to call food aggression. I know, buddy. You ready to go out? And there's one thing about a strong-willed dog that's really cool. When you teach them to be potty trained, they won't let you not take them out. So
I gotta
like,
go.
yeah, you get a dog that's like, they'll come up and they'll kind of look at you for a half a second, and if you don't immediately get
Yeah.
up and take them
Yeah.
out, they
Yeah.
walk away.
Yeah.
And that's fun, but sometimes I'm pretty lazy in the morning. Yeah, if my dog goes, "No, I'm going to use the restroom," you better let me out.
I
It's hard to
gotta go,
argue with
man.
that. Yeah, you're like, all right, we're gonna go, we're gonna go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good. It's funny what Goose does. She'll get up on this armchair if
yeah,
I'm on the
yeah.
computer,
No.
and she'll look at me. And if she thinks I don't understand what she wants, she'll start kind of pulling at me, and she'll kind of like she'll exasperate a little bit. I'm like, all right, and then if I say you got to go outside, man, the mirrors perk up quicker than it's so fun.
The thing
Yeah.
I've always been curious is the vocalizations. Um, some dogs are quicker to vocalize, and I don't mean barking. I mean like the
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
obviously want something and they're trying
Yeah.
to. And if you kind of start playing with them and you kind of go back with it, they can kind of string it out. It's not a conversation, but it's just kind of like, man, dogs don't do this. What the hell? So
Yeah.
then you have other
Yeah.
dogs that do nothing at all like that. They never
Oh
even,
yeah.
yeah,
That'll make a sound. Yep. Yeah.
yeah,
It's interesting how different they are in that
yeah.
way. But
So,
all right, Jim, this was great. Yeah, we'll definitely do this again, man. This was
all right,
great. This is an
have a
excellent
good one.
first conversation. Yeah, you too, Jim. Have a great day. Okay.
You too. Bye bye.
All right. Take care.
Boop, boop, right on that. Stop this.
Am I still live? Hold on. Everybody that showed up, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of you will see this on the replay, but very much appreciate you guys showing up, liking, and checking it out. you know, and again, anybody who wants to join at some point, you want to do this with me, email me, leave a comment, you know, we'll get it rolling. All right. Have a great day, everybody.